Hello and welcome to the Weekly Stuff Podcast with Jonathan Lack.
And Sean Chapman.
We are here as not in the last 2 months, but sometimes before then, to talk about stuff.
I feel like we just did this last week, Jonathan. I don't know what you're talking about. We do this every single week. That's why we call it the Weekly Stuff Podcast.
To be fair, the last month and a half in which we haven't recorded did go by fast for me. I don't know about for you.
Yeah, for me definitely too.
It just this was just one where time got away from us. Like, I was really busy with stuff, you were really busy with stuff.
And then also, it's just like there was nothing pressing to talk about, so there was like no need for a podcast. We would have just been doing a podcast for podcast's sake.
Yes, and
not because like there's no like fire in us that's like, we need to get this out here, motherfucker.
I think we were almost there when the trailer for Persona 5, which we are going to talk about, came out. But we also, as much as we love Persona, we're not going to do the thing where we do an hour-long podcast just talking about one trailer.
Yeah, that is a bit excessive.
It's a bit excessive because that's demanding more of our audience's limit for our Persona fandom than I think they have.
I mean, it's a really fucking cool trailer.
It is a really fucking cool trailer. And hey, if you don't know, the glory of Persona yet, this will be a great time to jump in.
Yeah.
It's 5, it's a new clean slate, new characters, all that.
Everything's red.
Yep.
It's gonna be great. If you like red, this is the fucking game for you.
Yeah, so today on the Weekly Stuff Podcast, we are going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about some other recent video game and movie news. And I think for our main... this is more going to be like a conversational catch-up podcast.
Yeah.
In part because I know we have some topics over the next month or two that are actually kind of mapped out. We know what's coming up, so kind of cleaning the slate today. We'll talk about that, video game movie news, a couple of recent video games, including Hotline Miami 2, which
Wrong number,
which we both just started playing, and you both know we're fans of that game. It was my 2013 game of 2012.
No, like you just said that it was your game of the year for 2013, and I just made fun of you because it did not fucking come out.
My number 5. It was not number 1.
Yeah, but it was on your list.
It was on my list
when it did not come out that year. You just played it that year.
It came out on the majority of platforms that year.
I mean, it came out on the fucking PC in 2012.
I didn't have a PC in 2012.
Oh, fuck you. That's your fault.
No, it is my fault. I have a PC now. And let's see. We're going to talk about some other things today. Before we get even to like the stuff portion where we just talk about, random thoughts, I want to start with, I think, the sad portion of the podcast. Probably best to do this up front. A couple weeks ago, Leonard Nimoy, beloved actor, best known for playing Mr. Spock on Star Trek, passed away at the age of 83, I believe, from lung complications, which he was very open about, having had some... He had stopped smoking 30 years ago, but as he said on Twitter, the damage had already been done. So,
Yeah, don't smoke.
Don't smoke.
It's a bad idea.
It is bad.
Yeah.
And you know what? If Mr. Spock says it, you better believe it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Don't fucking smoke.
Yeah. So, obviously the basic takeaway here is Leonard Nimoy. He was great, and I think we just want to talk about him for a couple minutes because he deserves it.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I've always preferred like the original series Star Trek stuff over everything else. And he's like one of the main reasons because I like the characters the most in the original series. And I think Spock is unarguably one of the most influential and most interesting characters made in any fiction in the entire 20th century. Like he stands up there among characters like Odysseus and Sherlock Holmes in like the pantheon of fiction and storytelling as one of those characters that just captures a style, captures the zeitgeist of an era, and is sort of a paradigm shift for how you do characters in certain genres. And, like, it's obviously a huge amount of that goes to Leonard Nimoy's performance.
Well, and that's what I was going to say is if you ask, anyone who worked on the original series and worked on the crafting of Spock, from Gene Roddenberry on down, they would all say so much of that character was crafted by Leonard Nimoy. Yeah. Not just the performance, but the ideas he brought to it. Like the Vulcan nerve pinch. That was, they had in a script, he punches someone, and he said, Spock wouldn't punch a guy, that doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
So let's come up with something more cerebral. And when it came time to come up with the Vulcan salute, in part informed by his Jewish faith, I guess it's based on something in Judaism, he came up with the Vulcan salute.
Yeah.
And is there any more recognizable just little gesture from any TV show or work of fiction in the 20th century?
Yeah. Exactly.
Or that half of the 20th century. That's just one of those things. That's an amazing shadow to cast. And it's easy with a character who casts that big a shadow to be the punchline of a joke or something now. Or so simple and often imitated that the original has lost power, but that's not the case with Leonard Nimoy or Spock. If you go back and watch any original series episode, any of the movies, anything Leonard Nimoy acted in as Spock, he is giving a great, committed, intense performance in all of that. And that is one of those elements of Star Trek that has never dated, and I don't think ever will.
Yeah.
That character is really eternal and timeless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it just forged an entire archetype for science fiction, you know?
Absolutely. And an archetype for Star Trek, too. I mean, this is one of the things, is that Spock... I think Spock both made Star Trek what it was, because while obviously Kirk and McCoy and a lot of the other elements of the original series are crucial, and you can't imagine Star Trek without them, I think Spock was what initially made Star Trek unique, and what really grabbed people's attention. Obviously, I mean, he is the most iconic character. And that is something that Star Trek has never quite been able to escape, because if you look at any of the other spin-offs, they have a Spock character.
Yeah.
Next Generation has Data, and he's different, and Data did eventually, I think, come into his own, but he is the Spock archetype.
Exactly, yeah.
And you have that in all the other ones, and even in the new movies. I think part of probably the reason for doing the reboot with the same characters isn't so that you can have Uhura again or something like that. And I love Uhura, and I love Sulu and all those characters, but they're not the ones in the public recognition. It's so you could have Spock, and specifically so you could bring Leonard Nimoy back for that role, which was a really great send-off to that character in the first J.J. Abrams movie. Not so much the second, which now is his last performance, is that little scene he has in Star Trek Into Darkness. So that's interesting. But the day he died, the first thing that came to mind is, man, when I get home from school today, I have to watch Star Trek 2.
Yeah, I did that as well.
Did the same thing? Yeah. Tough to get through the...
the ending, that movie... The ending of that movie's really rough.
Yeah.
Leonard Nimoy just died. And I wasn't even thinking about that when I was going in to watch Star Trek 2. I just watched it because that's like my favorite Star Trek thing, bar none.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, fuck, this character dies in this movie. I'm an idiot. Why did I do this to myself?
It's interesting because he is not actually in that movie all that much.
Yeah.
They pick his appearances there really carefully. And we did a whole episode actually on Star Trek 2 last year, or a couple of years ago. Must have been 2 years now, because it was for the other Star Trek 2. And, we talked about all the things that make that movie great. But Spock is, in a way, the heart of that movie, but they use him in just the perfect sparing way.
Yeah.
Where he has come to a point in his character arc over the original series and through the first Star Trek film and everything up to then, where he is finally kind of at peace with who he is. He's at peace with his split identity of human and Vulcan. And he's like the elder statesman of the series now. Kirk is still restless. McCoy is still restless in different ways. All the characters are. Spock is kind of elevated from that. And that's part of the tragedy of him dying at the end.
Yeah.
Is I think he's got his life figured out. But that's part of what allows him to do that.
Exactly,
too.
yeah.
But no, his performance in the death scene is just phenomenal. You can't... It's one of the best pieces of acting in any sci-fi movie of this, ever. I mean... Movies are a 20th century medium, so
exactly.
There you go. I mean, and what he brings out in William Shatner in that moment too, who I think that's both probably their best moment in the series.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, followed up by this moment I always think of with Spock in the original series, which is pain.
Yeah.
Which is an easy moment to make fun of, except when you're watching it, Leonard Nimoy sells the hell out of that.
I mean, you really have to act. You really have to act when your co-star in the scene is a pile of plastic vomit.
Yes. And how many ridiculous Star Trek scenarios did Leonard Nimoy sell?
There's a fucking episode where some aliens steal Spock's brain, and I kind of like that episode. It's not a good episode, but I like it.
Or it's the one from season 2, Amok Time, I think it is, where he has to have the Vulcan mating ritual.
Yes, that's a classic. That's a really good episode.
No, it is, but imagine if you put that in the hands of a lesser actor.
Yeah.
It would fall apart. It's a great episode because you have someone who can carry an idea that out there.
Yeah.
And obviously all the actors on the original series brought it, and they were part of that. But, that the key to Star Trek has always been that trifecta of Kirk, Spock, and McCoy.
Yeah.
And if you had any piece of that chemistry out of line, the series falls apart. And obviously he was a huge part of that. And of other things, too. He directed 2 Star Trek movies, 3 and 4. I love both of those.
Yeah.
4 is still the highest grossing Star Trek movie just by attendance and adjusted for inflation. that was really a phenomenon the series has never quite matched again. And it's a really fun movie, too.
Yeah, yeah.
He also, I learned, directed the highest-grossing film of 1987. He directed Three Men and a Baby.
I didn't know that.
Surprised to learn he directed that. Surprised to learn that was the highest-grossing film of 1987.
Yeah, I didn't know either of those things.
Yes, but that's interesting.
Yeah.
And, his most recent non-Star Trek role was on Fringe, which I don't think was a very good show, except when Leonard Nimoy was there. And I think when they leaned into that character, he played more. Even when that character wasn't on screen, when that character, he just cast a shadow and they could reference that character. That brought the series actually a spine that it was lacking for about 2 seasons. And then he left. He wasn't on the show for the last... I did not watch the last 2 seasons of Fringe because it was not a very good show. But when Leonard Nimoy was on, he was really good. So, yeah, it's a bummer.
Yeah, I mean, at least it's one of those things though that he was in his 80s,
yes.
So it's not like when Philip Seymour Hoffman died, where it just kind of comes out of nowhere and
right.
It's really tragic. It's sad, but he lived his full life. He
lived a full life.
Yeah,
I mean that's the one thing I wanted to end on, which is it's a bummer when anyone dies, obviously, especially someone as beloved and celebrated as this. But as you say, he lived a full life. And if you looked at the outpouring of support, here's a guy who dies at 83, has a family, all of that love him, and a world that there's no one who had anything negative to say about this guy.
Yeah.
No controversy surrounding Leonard Nimoy, and I think that's honestly getting rarer and rarer.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who really was just beloved for all his contributions to culture. And I even heard of stuff like the Sundance Film Festival published this whole blog post about all the contributions he made to that festival over the years that no one knows about because it was totally behind the scenes. But things like that are just really interesting to learn. And how much he, over his life, ultimately kind of slid into that role of Spock and accepted it and was just a cool dude for that. I never went to a Star Trek convention or anything, but I know that's part of why that culture became a culture was because stars like him were willing to embrace it.
Yeah, and then also he did all this cool creative stuff for himself. He wrote poetry, he wrote music.
Yeah,
he wrote the now infamous Bilbo Baggins song.
Which how have we not mentioned that yet?
Yeah,
I love that. That is. The Hobbit movies were okay. They do not compare to Leonard Nimoy's Bilbo Baggins song.
It's true, yeah.
Which
should have been the song that plays over the end credits of the Battle of the Five Armies.
Absolutely, and I like the song over the Battle of the Five Armies, but it does not compare to the Ballad of Bilbo Baggins.
Exactly.
Yeah. Which, if you've ever seen the music video for, is done in costume as Spock with a bunch of hippie elf chicks.
Yep.
It's fucking bizarre, but it's great.
Yep.
I mean, that alone, that's a legacy.
Yeah, I mean, he was the man of his era, He will always be the late 60s and early 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, totally. So, definitely Leonard Nimoy will miss you, and thanks for all the just, awesome contributions, as we said, to culture in general.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go ahead and move on. Let's talk about some sillier stuff here, I guess.
Yeah.
So, what's been up, Sean? Month and a half. Anything? Any stories?
No stories. I've not nothing super interesting has happened. I've got weirdly sucked into Advanced Warfare multiplayer again. I thought I played it not heavily, but I played it a couple of matches every day the month the game came out, and I got it. And then I kind of took a break for a while, and then a couple of weeks ago I was just let's load this up and see what it is. It sucked me in way more than ever has before. That's a really good fucking game, man. The multiplayer is so much fun. I've almost hit the max rank, which is 50, I think.
Do they have the prestige system in there?
Yeah, I probably won't prestige because part of the reason why I got sucked into it again is that I decided to just experiment with the classes in more interesting ways than I did before. Because you can just make this weirdest, stupidest fucking classes. I've been using one where there's this pistol that's super powerful, but it can only fire one bullet, and then you have to reload. So I just made a class where that's my only gun, and I just packed all these attachments onto it, and all these perks that make me super fast. And it's a terrible class. I've never done well with it. I only play free-for-all because I would feel too bad if I played like that on a team and pulled the whole team down with me. But it's so satisfying to play because when you get a killing spree and you're using that class, you feel like the biggest fucking badass in the world because you're just flying all over the place, hit one-shotting people because that's the only way you can possibly kill someone. Because if you miss, you are dead immediately. So yeah, the game allows you to really play how you want it, and I've been having a lot of fun with it.
I might have to check that out. That sounds interesting, and it's cool to hear. And from not just from you, but from other people, enthusiasm about Call of Duty multiplayer again.
I've also gotten into this mode called Gun Game that I know it's a mode that originates from Counter-Strike, and then I think Call of Duty brought it in with one of the Black Ops games. But the mode is basically everyone starts with this one submachine gun, and then every time you get a kill, you move up like this ladder of weapons. So you like get a kill with this submachine gun, and then you get this assault rifle. Then you get with the kill with this assault rifle, and then you get like a shotgun or something. And there's 25 different weapons you move through. That mode is super fucking fun because it's this mad rush to just like try to get kills as quickly as possible, and then when you start getting into like the top 10 weapons, that's when you just start getting stupid shit like this like shitty sniper rifle that's not supposed to be used in a free-for-all situation, or like the last weapon is this crossbow that is fucking terrible, but you have to try to like work around using all these different weapons. It's really frantic and really fun, so I've been playing that too.
Nice.
Yeah. So if people have been playing Advanced Warfare but have not checked out Gun Game, I highly recommend it. It's a really fun change of pace and forces you to change your strategy immensely, like immediately. You just kill someone and you're like, okay, I cannot play the game the same way I was 2 seconds ago because this is a fucking shotgun and I was just using a sniper rifle. And you just have to adapt immediately.
Nice. Well, I have a game I've been playing, but like an older game too I can talk about in a second. First, I did want to tell a story.
Okay.
Because this happened to me a couple weeks ago, and I've been saving it for the podcast because I thought it was funny.
Okay.
I was walking home from school the other day.
As you do.
As I do. And I get to the stop sign outside our apartment. Yeah. Or stop light. And so you have to wait. It's a long light, so you kind of have to wait there for 2 minutes or so. And I'm standing there, and this guy's standing next to me, and he's got like sort of a trench coat on, like one of those big coats with a lot of pockets.
Yes.
And he's just standing there, and he just seems like a normal dude. And then out of nowhere, he goes, "What the fuck?" And he's reaching in his pockets and he's like moving. It's like he's got a spider on him or something.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on? He's like, what are these? And he pulls something out of his pocket. He's like, chocolate chips? And he's got all these chocolate chips in his pocket. And he starts throwing them on the concrete. And then he starts laughing maniacally and runs across the street.
Right, okay.
What the fuck was that?
Okay, yeah. I didn't know where that story was going.
I didn't either.
I didn't expect that.
I swear to God, this dude's like, what is this? He's got all these chocolate chips in his pocket and is throwing them on the ground, laughs, and just runs.
So do you think that he just staged that whole scenario on his own? Or did someone in his life stuff his pockets full of chocolate chips and he just didn't notice until he happened to put his hands in his pockets when he was standing next to you at the stoplight and had this massive revelation right in front of you?
This is what I love about the story because there's so many possibilities.
Yeah, like
what is the origin of those chocolate chips? Why would he have not noticed them before? Where do you just get chocolate? I mean, I know you get them for baking and stuff, but how would you just put them in someone's pockets?
Yeah.
Did he put them in his own pockets? Like, was this his winter coat from last year?
Yeah.
And he's wearing it for the first time? I don't know.
Because I feel like if I was in that situation and I was wearing a coat and put my hands in my pockets and discovered chocolate chips, I feel like I would have a moment of panic of not understanding what was going on, and then I would try to play it off immediately and not key anyone else into the situation of what has just happened.
No, this dude was like, your typical kind of Boulder bro guy, and that he was, once he started talking, he was oblivious. He's in his own world,
Right, yeah.
Yeah. With his chocolate chips, so I don't know.
Do you think there were drugs in the chocolate chips?
Maybe. I mean, I don't smoke pot, but maybe when you do, I know there's the whole munchies thing. Does that include just stuffing your pockets with chocolate chips? Like, I'm going to need you later.
Maybe that's what happened. Maybe he got really high earlier.
Yeah.
Had the munchies and was like, I know I'm going to need to eat something more later, so I'm going to pack a treat to go. But then he was so high that he forgot that he did that. So then when he was standing next to you, he discovered it for himself. Yeah. And he had just had to deal with it in his own way.
Fucking bizarre, man.
So where did he go? Like, I know this is not interesting to the podcast, but I just want to know directionally.
I'm waiting to come towards our apartment, right?
Okay, yes.
Across the street. He just bolted, and it was at one of those moments, I think the light maybe had just shifted, and I was in such shock that it took me a second to like, okay, I gotta move because this light is short.
Yeah.
But yeah, he ran basically towards our apartment.
Okay.
And then I think he went to the left, where there's the trail behind our place?
Yes.
And he kept going that way.
Okay.
I believe.
I'm just glad that he didn't run into our apartment complex.
Yeah.
Because that would be disastrous to find out that
the chocolate chip guy.
Yeah, that the chocolate chip man was loitering around.
Is he the chocolate chip fairy and he had amnesia and he just leaves chocolate chips for people?
Yeah, maybe that's his mission in life, but he had amnesia. Like,
and this was one of the most confusing parts to me because someone yells, "Oh my god, chocolate chips!" For one, you don't expect that.
Yeah.
Two,
you really don't expect.
Two, you don't expect him to actually produce them. Like that was, I was looking at the ground, like those are actual chocolate chips, and he threw a bunch of them on the ground, right at my feet, and like one of them, like he was right next to me, and he's just throwing them on the ground.
And now I'm thinking about that part of the story. That seems kind of wasteful to me as well.
It does, yes.
Like, if they're chocolate chips for baking, you don't necessarily just want to like eat mouthfuls of those, but still, that's just throwing them on the ground.
That could hurt animals.
Yeah, that's in bad taste, I think.
Speaking of which, I have another story.
Okay,
about stuff at CU because people are fucking weird around here.
It's true.
Pot is legal now. Weird things happen.
Yeah.
Which maybe that's an upside of the legalization of pot. I don't know.
Yeah, it depends on how you're feeling that day, whether or not it's an upside or not.
Right. So I was, it was on like a Friday or it was on a Saturday, and I'm out in the courtyard by the UMC, which is like our cafeteria sell shit center at CU Boulder. If
they should just call it the sell shit center.
It is. I mean, that's where in the first week of school you go, and people are either handing you the New Testament or coupon books.
Yes.
And I imagine the New Testament has coupons in it.
Probably. Yeah. And the coupons probably had a miniature version of the Bible, like, written in there.
Yeah. Which, oh god, I have anyway. Sorry, I'm remembering stories now. But anyway, so I'm at the courtyard, and I was sitting there, I was actually grading papers, and, because it was just nice, like, it was a nice day outside, I wanted to be outside while I have to do this menial task.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there, and on the table across from me, someone has left, like 4 Hershey's Kisses and a couple of other little Hershey's bars.
What the fuck is with your life? Is this you at some point that people are just leaving chocolates mystically around places?
I think this was around Valentine's Day.
Okay.
Because earlier that day, a girl had walked by and been like, "Here, have a Hershey's Kiss," because it's Valentine's Day. I'm like, "Oh, thanks." But then someone must have gotten...
You probably shouldn't have eaten that Hershey Kiss, because that probably had pot in it.
That's a really good point. Man, I was like,
I would not trust any food item that some random person on campus gave me.
That's a good point. Anyway, so this was probably leftover Valentine's Day candy. And it was on a table, and a squirrel comes by, unwraps one of them, and starts eating the chocolate.
Wait, are you... Oh, but you're outside.
I'm outside.
Okay, yeah, you're not in the UMC, no. You're by the UMC.
It's the courtyard outside, right?
It's like, that's a big detail of the story if you were inside the UMC.
No, I'm outside. Squirrel comes by, starts eating the chocolate. And I'm like, that's bad, right? And I look up, like, is chocolate poisonous to squirrels on Google on my phone?
Right.
And it says, yes. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I'm not just going to sit here and watch a squirrel kill itself. So I had to go over, shoo the squirrel away, pick up all the chocolate, and throw it in the trash. Because I figured it's not going to jump into the trash can to get it.
It's a squirrel. Why would it not?
Okay.
It's a fucking rodent.
Maybe it will.
It doesn't have like, well, I'm really hungry, but I'm not going to fucking jump. I have some self-respect. I'm a fucking squirrel.
Okay.
I'm not going to dig through the goddamn trash.
Anyway, and that's the thing. So in the back of my...
eat food off the ground.
In the back of my mind, I knew throwing this chocolate away wouldn't really... the squirrel's probably going to die either way.
Yeah.
But it's like, I can't just sit here while I watch a squirrel commit suicide via chocolate. That's the part that was like, I can't do this.
Okay, yeah.
Anyway. Then the last story, all I had to say was grading papers, anyway. And it's just a test for a film class. Someone tried to tell me on a test I was grading last night that Rashomon, Akira Kurosawa's Rashomon, is a Christian allegory. And said... That's so funny. And the best part, so you know the scene in Rashomon where the medium like channels the spirit of the dead man to tell his story?
Yes.
Trying to say that was an allegory for Jesus Christ because the guy came back from the dead through the medium.
Did you flunk this person?
I wrote, that seems like a bit of a stretch. And that person that person got a bad grade on that essay, I should say, or a lower than other people's, but yeah.
It's like, I kind of feel for that person because as someone who's an English major who focuses mostly on Western literature, if you are just trying to pull an easy metaphor out of something, you always go to the Christ allegory. 100% of the time, if you want to read an allegory into something, you go straight to Christ and you are good like 95% of the time. Like, seriously... That's totally true. When you go to Japanese literature or film, though, that might not be the first thing you do.
No.
Because, like, I know that Christianity obviously spread in a small fashion to Japan by that point, but...
Not to...
Yeah, it's not, like, suffused into the culture to the point that you can just pull it out of fucking Rashomon.
Yeah, there is no Kurosawa movie that has Christian subtext. I want to be very clear on that.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. That is definitely the best bad answer I have gotten on a test so far.
Fuck, man.
That takes the cake. I was kind of... At first I was like, what the fuck? And then I was like, I was just happy because, like, this is...
Because at least it's a more interesting thing to read, right? Than, you have to imagine when you're reading, like, 100 fucking essays. It's like, oh, God. It's like, oh, okay. The Christ allegory in Akira Kurosawa's Rashomon. Yeah. Nope. But sure, I'll read this.
The best part is it's through the medium thing, which is it's not a resurrection. It's a totally different thing. Oh man, it's like and the way that whole essay was structured, I wouldn't be surprised if that person didn't actually see the movie and they just read a plot synopsis or something.
That would make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That would make sense how you then come to the conclusion that person came to.
But anyway.
Like, now that we're, like, bringing up stuff that's happened, like, in classes and stuff, I don't want to go into this, but there is one person in one of my classes who, in the middle of class, this was, like, a month ago, she just, like, came out, like, and said, I'm a Wiccan. And so I'm kind of offended by, because we were talking, it's a gothic horror class, so we were talking about, like, horror movies and stuff. She's like, I'm kind of offended by the way that some horror movies treat witches. It's like...
Was this Allison Hannigan from Buffy, like, just still in character in your class?
I mean, it's basically... I mean, she seems kind of like the character of Willow.
Okay.
In some ways, yes. But it's, like, you know... I've been in Boulder now for, like, 4 years. And so I know... There are weird people that are, like, into... Like, what if, you know...
There's nothing wrong with being a Wiccan.
Yeah, if you're into Wicca, like... That's cool... into your own thing, but I've never heard someone just straight up in the middle of class pull that into the class discussion, like, out of fucking nowhere. And then later, we were reading the short story Great God Pan, which is basically a horror story about this, like, mad scientist who, like, does this crazy brain shit to try to get people to, like, commune with the Great God Pan. And in the story, there's all this sort of, like, pagan ritual stuff. And she kind of started talking about how, like, the dangers of trying to commune with pagan gods. But not in a way that's, like, you know, in literature or fiction. In a way that's, like, I've tried to commune with pagan gods in my spare time, and I found it a very dangerous activity kind of way. Like, very serious, a very practical discussion about, you know, rituals and stuff like that. In a way that's, like... This is kind of interesting to listen to, but this is really derailing the class discussion, and I don't think it's totally relevant to what this Victorian dude was talking about. Because, you know, if you want to be into Wicca, you can be into Wicca, but I think it is important to note that it was basically invented by a guy in the 1920s. It is not ancient witchcraft. It is, like, 20th century kind of New Age stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like... If you're a Wiccan, don't just bring it out of fucking nowhere into the middle of the class. Because it makes everyone else feel really awkward, and the teacher doesn't know what to do.
That is... Yeah, I don't know what level of, like, teaching expertise you would get to where you know how to handle that situation.
I mean, if the professor for that class is a really good professor. She's, like, my favorite professor I've had, and she, like, rolled with it remarkably well. But, like, there was a moment, like, if you looked in her eyes, this just, like... She was just in her own head for a second. It's like, how do I deal with this situation? How do I respond to these comments in a way that's not insulting to anyone, because you don't want to insult anyone, but, like, you need to get the class off of this track, or else we are going to waste the entire class period.
Yeah. Well, kudos to her.
Yeah.
That's...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's just, like... I'm a Wiccan. Like, I just never heard that in a class before. And I have met other Wiccans, but I've never heard someone say that in a class before. It was a new experience.
No, freshman year I had some, in one of my, like, seminar honors classes in the dorm, I definitely had some of those where people had perfectly fine beliefs, nothing I'm against or anything.
Yeah.
But interesting to hear talking about.
Yeah, but like they're the kind of beliefs is like you just don't want to bring it up in this situation because it's like this is really derailing. Like it's a interesting belief system, but it's also a very minority belief system, and we can't spend the whole class talking about it.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's pretty great. I've got some others maybe for next week or something. Just, because I'm forced to watch some weird fucking movies in my classes. Yeah. But
from what I understand.
Yeah, anyway. But we'll save that for next week. So back to the stuff outside. So you talked about Modern Warfare, or Advanced Warfare.
Yeah, way beyond Modern Warfare, motherfucker.
It's advanced now.
Yeah, he's got like fucking jump jets and shit.
I did. I'm not going to talk about this much. I just wanted to mention this, and maybe on an upcoming episode I can go in more depth on this because I'd love to talk about this series more. I did over the last 2 months get super into the Metroid series. Mm-hmm. I had played Super Metroid over the Christmas break. It was like a revelation to me, and I have and I finally right around the time they put the Metroid Prime trilogy out on the Wii U. I still have my copy of that, the Steelbook, which is really rare. I'm happy to have that now because it's a really kind of rare item. So I pulled that out again. And I've started Metroid Prime a bunch, like when I was a kid, and now I've played 1 and 2. I got into those and just, those Metroid Prime 1 is on my top 10, probably in my top 5, one of the best games I've ever played. And Metroid Prime 2 is phenomenal too. Like it's got some issues, but it's a great game. Nothing to put it down. And I just haven't had time to move on to 3 yet, but I'm excited too. So those are awesome, and that's so cool that is in the Wii U eShop now. So you can really easily, those games are archived, which I love. It's the Wii version, so you have to play with the Wiimote and Nunchuck, but by far and away the best use of motion control. If every game had used motion control that well, the Wii would be a big thing still. Like, it's amazing how well those games do it. Like, you don't even think about it after a certain point, other than it's slightly uncomfortable to do that, but not much once you get used to it. It's perfect for that kind of game because you wouldn't want that with like a Twitch shooter or something, like a real first-person shooter. Yeah. But that's not what those games are. Those are adventure games with some shooting aspects, but they are not about the combat. Yeah, which is good. That would be a real betrayal of what Metroid is, I think. Mm-hmm. So anyway, fucking love those games. I would love to do an episode more about that at some point. Yeah, like I've never played anything past Metroid Prime, and I don't think I ever finished Metroid Prime. Like that's so long ago that I have almost no memory of it. I remember really liking it, but yeah. It's great, and I think those are games that honestly to me work better now that I'm an adult. And like when I was a kid, I don't know if I had the patience for that kind of game. Yeah, it is definitely. It's very slow. Like you said, like it's not about the combat; it's more about like exploration. Yeah, and it's about getting into this almost to me kind of meditative state you feel with a lot of my favorite games these days. Would you call it a Metroiditative state? No, I wouldn't. Oh, because I would. And I make shitty jokes on this show. Don't specify to the show. You just make shitty jokes. I do make shitty jokes. Anyway. I want to say that was a postmodern joke in that it was not funny, but it was intended to be not funny. That's what makes it funny. No, absolutely. Yeah. And I'm glad we could do the analysis too. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because nothing. That's what I'm at college for. Yeah. Like, this is my training. Yeah. Nothing makes comedy funnier than picking it apart. Yeah. Yeah. No. So anyway, those are great, and I hope to play more of those in the future. I'm excited to get more of those under my belt. They're really great games. But anyway, then the more modern game I've been playing the last couple of weeks is I got Sleeping Dogs on the Xbox One. Yeah. And I think Sleeping Dogs. And Sleeping Dogs came out on PS Plus like a year ago, and I was playing it on PS3 a little bit, but just didn't really get into it. In part because I don't hate the DualShock 3, but you never want to play a driving game with it. Yeah. Or anything with precision. Because I played Sleeping Dogs when it was like free on PS Plus, and I suffered through the DualShock 3. Oh, that is how you played it, right? Yeah, but that game's so good that it was totally worth playing with that controller. Yeah. No, but this game has been a fucking revelation. So this is the definitive edition. It was on Xbox. Xbox Live games, like the free games with gold, still isn't very good, but the deals with gold, that is on par with some of the PS Plus stuff. They've got some really good deals. Like this week, I just saw they have the Tomb Raider definitive edition for $13. If you have an Xbox One and you want to play that game, that is a phenomenal game, especially at that price. So, I really like the Square Enix's naming conventions with their like HD remasters, or like I guess like not HD, but their remasters of games. They call them Definitive Edition. Yeah, it just feels like, I don't know. It feels like a fuck you almost. It's just like, this is the real Sleeping Dogs. This is definitive Sleeping Dogs. I don't know what you guys played before. Well, and what is nice is in addition to the huge graphical upheaval, you also get all the DLC. Yeah, and that game had some good DLC. Yeah, like the horror one I remember particularly liking because you have the hopping Jiangxi zombies. Oh, cool! I haven't.
Chinese zombies are fucking cool, man.
Yeah, I'm almost done with the campaign, so I haven't gotten into the DLC yet, but I'm excited for that. But no, this game to me is heads and tails above any of the recent slew of GTA clone, open world type games that I've played, up to and including GTA 5. It is focused and just tight in a way that none of these games are. It's got easily the best driving I've played in one of these games. It's got combat and stuff that feels so unique and not like every other game I've played.
Yeah.
The actual objectives around Hong Kong are interesting. They're mostly there's substance to them. It's not just I'm going to go collect something. There's a lot more to it. Even the collectibles wind up having story points and things to it. So that's amazing. And it's such a good game. Hong Kong itself as an open world isn't, it's not the best open world I've seen, but I like that the game is kind of just down to earth and focused in such a cool way. And it is, you and I were talking about this before the podcast. Maybe the best comparison would be Red Dead Redemption, in that it's an open world game that really tries to emulate a genre of film. Mm-hmm. And so Red Dead is like the perfect Western game. It makes you feel like you are in a great Western movie. And this is the Hong Kong action movie. And actually I got into playing Sleeping Dogs again because I'm in this Asian cinema class and we were watching some Hong Kong cinema. And it made me want to live the Hong Kong cinema.
Fuck yeah.
Which I totally did with this game. Just the fighting is so great. All the environmental damage you can do. And then my favorite sections are when you're driving and you're like hanging out the side of your car shooting and you're just making cars flip and shit.
And this because the game has the mechanic where you can jump out of your car to land on another car, jacket, which is fucking amazing.
It's amazing.
But I think the secret best part about that mechanic is that the button you press to do that has a way open the car door and lean out of it. So at any point when you're driving, you can just open and close the car door. So you can just, you can be driving, a little bit too close to the sidewalk and just be like, you know what? Open the door, hit someone with it, close the door, and keep on going on your way. And just, Sleeping Dogs is a really fun game to play, the missions and just experience the open world. But it also gives you a lot of really great tools to just cause mayhem and have fun with it, too.
I love the mayhem and fun side of it. And it's I want to talk about the driving a little more because it is so good. It's, as you say, it's very arcadey.
Yeah.
But it's you can really control the car kind of however you want. You can make it do what you want it to do.
Yeah.
And so what I found is so fun in these games is I love the races. Mm-hmm. And you put a race in front of me from Grand Theft Auto, from Watch Dogs, from any of those types of games, I just laugh at it because why would you ever want to race with those controls? That's just not what those controls are built for, and it's laughable. I've been playing some GTA Online a couple weeks ago. And it's I like GTA Online. There's a lot of fun stuff about it. Not the racing.
Yeah,
that's stupid. Yeah. But in Sleeping Dogs, it's a high. You just get high off that. It is so intense and fun.
Because if I remember correctly, also Sleeping Dogs is really smart in that they don't make the races long. Right,
there's a couple of long ones, but generally
most of them are pretty short. Mm-hmm. And GTA races in particular, always are just drive around half of Los Santos. It's fucking no, because if you aren't in first place, if you fuck up early on in the race, then it's you're never going to catch up, and then you're completely fucked, and you have to race around for 3 minutes before you restart. Whereas Sleeping Dogs, most of the races are a minute at most, but they're really fun.
Yep. You know? They're great. And there is one super long race where you go around all of Hong Kong on bikes. But that's a great race because it's different. It's it's a break from the flow.
Yeah.
So it's they don't overload you on any one element. And I also love that the missions, you never just do the same thing in a row. There's always some kind of variation. And even the missions where it's just you go and escort someone or something, the writing is sharp enough and the dialogue is fun enough and the performances are good enough that it's great. Mm-hmm. There's nothing I've found in this game that isn't fun except karaoke, but
yeah, but that's just a weird mini game.
Yeah,
and even that's fun for the goofiness of it, and they have a pretty great selection of kind of terrible 80s songs. And
I understand why it's in there. You don't want your Hong Kong action movie without a karaoke scene.
Yeah, it's some flavor,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I'm really glad that you're playing it. And also, I should say that, because I just watched him play it a little bit before we started recording the podcast, and it looks really good. It's a really... the game looked really good before, but it's a solid upgrade. So if you haven't played it, it seems like the definitive edition is a really good get.
And I've noticed the last couple of weeks, either physically or digitally, both PS4 and Xbox One have had some great sales on it from different vendors. Yeah. So... if you have a PS4 and Xbox One, it is, I think, a must-buy.
Yeah, Sleeping Dogs is a fucking amazing game, and it's just really sad that a lot of people didn't get it. It didn't sell particularly well, And like everyone who did play it in the game's media and stuff, that from what I read, they all loved it. But it's just like, for whatever reason, the game never really got out there in a big way, in the way that it really should have.
Absolutely.
So,
but yeah, totally worth it. It is, I think a lot of games talk about wanting to be cinematic now, and I think that's dumb. Games should be games, and movies should be movies. But a couple of games, every once in a while, get that feeling of like you are living one of your favorite movie genres or something, and this is one of them, and that can be a really magical experience. Mm-hmm. So totally with this game.
And, in Sleeping Dogs, if you want... You don't have to do this, but if you want, you can just go walking down the street, and then if someone just kind of like, you just kind of don't like the way they look, you can just fucking grab them by the collar, like shove them up against a payphone, grab the phone out of the payphone, and smack them in the face with it 3 times, and just throw it on the ground and walk away. And it's like, that's right, motherfucker.
The hand-to-hand combat is so good. It's amazing.
So fucking brutal. It's so satisfying.
There's this one mission where you're in your club, the Club Bam Bam.
Yeah,
and you just have to like fight off some attack. You're taking the club. I think is the thing, the territory. And it's like by the end of that, you feel like you are in one of those action movies where by the end you are on your last legs. You've been beat to a pulp. You're out of health, and you're just and you get your knife finally, and then you just cut some dudes up.
Yeah,
it is like being in the middle of one of those scenes, and
you do that combo where you just fucking like kick someone's knee and just break their fucking leg. It's like fuck, man, that game's so good.
I love there's this one part of the game, too, where the guy's in the triad, because you're an undercover cop, and they say to Wei, the main character, the undercover cop, it's like, man, you haven't killed anyone yet, you need to prove it to us. It's like, fuck you, I have killed so many people.
It's like, fuck you, I just threw some random fucking dude on the street into an air conditioner fan. His face is splattered against the wall. I've killed more people than you've ever met, motherfucker.
The second mission in the game, you can throw people into the air conditioning fan. And my favorite one is like around the middle of the game, you have this mission where you're in this like big industrial place, and you go in and you're near a furnace, and you I have a clip of this on Xbox where I took every single person in that fight. There were like 8 dudes, and I just grabbed them and threw every one of them into the furnace and burned all of them alive. And it looks so brutal.
It is brutal in just the perfect, like in that Hong Kong action movie way. It's just like that perfect line of it's like, it's not enough to make you feel like bad.
Right.
It's just enough to make you feel bad.
Yeah. No, it's great. It's so great. All right, we'll get back to talking about video games in a little bit here, but maybe more like new stuff. But yeah, for now, let's talk about some different news things. So we'll build to Persona. Let's start with a couple weeks ago, Sean.
Okay.
This is something that we debated whether or not to talk about because it's kind of out of date now.
Yeah.
But we talked about this enough on the show, and it'll give us a moment to gloat over something.
Yeah.
But a couple weeks ago, Marvel and Sony issued a joint press release where they announced that they were co-producing a new Spider-Man film. So this will be funded by Sony, it'll come out through Sony, but for all intents and purposes, Marvel Studios will be making this.
Yes.
Kevin Feige, who is the mastermind of Marvel Studios, will be producing it. They're kicking off some of the producers he doesn't like from the old Spider-Man films, and they will have say on all the casting and stuff, and maybe even more importantly, this new Spider-Man, because it will be a new Spider-Man, clean break in continuity, will be appearing in an upcoming Marvel film that has not been confirmed, but everyone suspects, and I think it's basically, we know this at this point, it'll be Captain America Civil War.
Yeah, makes sense.
Because in an earlier version of the script, they had Spider-Man in there, then they couldn't get him, and now I think they reverted to that version, so they could have Spider-Man in there. And then there will be a standalone movie, and this is, if you want to know how important this is to Marvel, they pushed back every film on their calendar. So this Spider-Man movie comes out in summer 2017. That was the date for, I believe, Thor Ragnarok. Everything got pushed back into the next slot, except I think the Avengers 3 and 4 are staying where they were. But everything else has been... So this is for all intents and purposes, this is part of Phase 3.
Yeah.
Spider-Man has come back home. He is safe. He is loved. He will not be hurt anymore.
Yeah.
And the news now, and the rumor now also is that for this new standalone Spider-Man movie, Drew Goddard, who was going to be working on the Sinister Six movie that I don't think is going to happen anymore, he will be writing and directing it, and perfect choice. He worked on Buffy, he worked on Angel, he did Cabin in the Woods. He's a great writer-director.
Yeah.
Perfect for this material. That would be
he's
so
also
great.
He's got the funny that you need for Spidey.
Absolutely. Frankly, anyone who worked on Buffy and Angel is A-okay to work on a Marvel movie.
Yeah, because those are basically superhero shows.
They are.
Yeah.
Completely. They're probably the best superhero shows ever made.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah. So that all that news, that's cool. Sean, your reaction.
Thank God, thank fucking God that I don't have to sit through an Amazing Spider-Man 3.
And that's the big thing I want to say here is this was not said in the press release, but we all know this is the implicit truth. They have canceled the Amazing Spider-Man line after not even a year after that second movie came out. It is dead. All of those people are free. I think all their extended Spidey Universe stuff it's not going to happen.
Yeah. And that's how fucking terrible of a movie Amazing Spider-Man 2 is that movie didn't it didn't go crazy at the box office, but it did not do bad at the box office. It was not a flop by any definition.
No.
But it was so fucking awful, just this black fucking hole of a movie that there's nowhere to go. You couldn't possibly, no matter how cynical and money grubbing of a movie producer you could possibly be, it's just you look at Amazing Spider-Man 2 and you're like, fuck, man.
Yeah.
This is so bad. I can't justify it in my own personal moral framework to make another movie in this continuity. This has to be killed. It has to be put down. That's how bad Amazing Spider-Man 2 is.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the part that's most fascinating to me about this announcement, is I don't know of an analog for this anywhere in movie history, or commercial movie history. I mean, as you say, the movie was so bad that even though the financial performance was fine, they canceled that whole line, they're recasting, and they have basically given all creative control over to another company. That has never happened.
Do you think when it happened, some Sony executive went up to Kevin Feige and was like, I am so fucking sorry, man. I am so sorry. Just here you go. Just hands the paper. Just take it. I'm so fucking sorry, dude.
I mean, there are other contributing factors. It's Sony is in dire straits after all the hack stuff and what happened with the interview, and that Spider-Man really is their last big franchise. They co-distribute James Bond, but that's not entirely theirs, and that's part of the problem. So James Bond obviously is as big a franchise as you could want, especially after Skyfall, but you don't get to make a James Bond movie every year or anything. You don't.
All of a sudden I've seen the other path that Sony could have taken is try to get Spider-Man into a James Bond movie.
Glad they didn't do that.
Yeah.
Luckily, James Bond is still owned by the Broccoli family. I don't think they would let that happen. But yeah.
Maybe they're huge fans of Spider-Man. Fucking great. It doesn't fit at all, but sure. This is it's fucking Garfield throwing around in the Spider-Man.
The connection is James Bond tries to sleep with Mary Jane. Anyway, so yeah. Anywho, so but that's and so the deal actually financially is interesting. The standalone movies, all the money will go to Sony, and for the movies if Spider-Man shows up in Avengers, they can use him wherever they want. But those movies, all the money for those will go to Marvel. So it's actually a pretty amenable deal they made. Yeah. But this is why I say there's no analog. Is other times a big franchise has been canceled, like the original Batman movies. That's because not only was Batman and Robin bad, but it did flop. It did not make money, so that made sense. Or it didn't make enough money to justify. When the Fantastic Four series died at Fox, actually Fantastic Four 2 was better than 1, but it still wasn't very good, and it didn't make money, and it was died. So there's always something clearer there. This is really, if Amazing Spider-Man 2 had performed the same dollar amount or less, and been a decent or good movie, this would not be happening. Yeah. Because they would feel like they had something to build on. But this this is a verification of how bad that movie was. Yeah. As if we need verification.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So. Because it's that, it was the second, they were setting up so much shit off of that movie. They were going to make Amazing Spider-Man 3, they were talking about making a Venom movie, they were talking about making that Sinister Six movie, but Amazing Spider-Man 2 was so bad, it just destroyed all of that. Yeah. Because it's just one of those things where you're trying to build that franchise. If you make one big stumble in the early phases, it just all crumbles,
And isn't it... That honestly shows what a good job Marvel has been doing. Yeah. That they haven't made that error yet. Mm-hmm. They're, whether you like their movies or not, their commitment to baseline competency is a huge part of their success. Mm-hmm. It really is... Just this whole thing is crazy to me.
But the one sort of melancholy part of this news is that you don't get to find out. Your morbid curiosity will never be satisfied on where would it have gone? How would they have dealt with Mary Jane and how horribly they fucked up Gwen Stacy's death in 2? Like, how would they have tried to resolve that parent stuff after they kept on cutting it out of the movies? Like, what would Sinister Six have been? How do you make a Sinister Six movie? Like, all of those questions that had been burning inside of me after seeing Amazing Spider-Man 2 of, like, what is this franchise going to be going forward? Like, they will always be unanswered, and that's a little bit frustrating.
Yeah.
But obviously, getting a new lease on life for a cinematic Spider-Man, and also having Spider-Man be able to interact with his comic book peers in the movieverse, more than, like, pays that price, you know?
Absolutely. And I should say, Sony has said they're committed, actually, to making more, to making the Sinister Six movie, and the Venom thing. I don't think it's going to happen. I think
and obviously, even
that.
if it does happen, it would have to be completely different because it can't fit within the continuity anymore. You know, it's just they would have to obviously rewrite it for however their new Spider-Man is going to be.
Yeah. So, but it's crazy, and yeah, Spider-Man is coming home. He'll get to be part of the Avengers. That's awesome, and you know, it sounds like they are trying to cast it now because they're going to need him for Civil War. And the rumors are all that they are looking for a younger actor, like an actual teenager.
Yeah.
Which is what they were trying to do for Amazing Spider-Man, and then they hired 30-year-old Andrew Garfield.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean...
Which is not a very forward-looking decision when you're trying to make a film franchise.
No, it wasn't. But, you know, I think Amazing Spider-Man 2 honestly showed how miscast he was regardless. So,
yeah.
Whatever. And I know a lot of people liked that incarnation of the character. A lot of people were wrong.
Yeah.
So, whatever. And all it took was a spectacularly awful movie to make that clear.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah.
But I mean, are you excited to see Spider-Man in the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit soured by the Amazing Spider-Man that it's like, I just wish those movies didn't exist, and like we could have just had a break since Spider-Man 3 with Tobey Maguire, and then now have Spider-Man come back because it's been long enough now since Spider-Man 3 that it feels like you can kind of do the reboot. But then we had another reboot in between that was already too early.
Yeah.
So,
that is the weird part of this, is we're going to get our third Spider-Man.
Yeah. Like, I really hope, and they must not do the origin story.
They're not.
Like,
they're not.
That would just be so boring, you know?
And all of the reports say that is not where anyone at Marvel wants to go with it, because if you look at what Marvel's doing, they're trying to downplay origin stories with their own heroes now.
Yeah.
Like, they are not planning on having, like, in their Phase 3, they're not planning on doing a Black Panther origin story, or...
Because he doesn't even really have one.
Or Captain Marvel or any of those. They really want to just start more in media res with these characters, and that's a good decision.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Because it's like, man, if I had to sit through another movie that's like... just does all the Spider-Man origin stuff, because it's like, fuck, like Amazing Spider-Man 1 was already mostly just Spider-Man 1.
But with weird changes.
Bad changes, but the whole framework of the movie was like, there were like whole scenes that were basically the same from Sam Raimi's Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I'm glad a lot of those people who worked on the Amazing Spider-Man series are free now. You know?
To go be free.
If
run away, far away from what had happened to you.
You know, because Mark Webb directed a movie I really love before he got into this Spider-Man bullshit, which was 500 Days of Summer. And that showed so much promise. And then he got into the Spider-Man business, and I'm sure he regrets it every day.
Yeah.
But now he doesn't have to do more. He has a chance at a career. I do think if he had to come back for another one, that would have been it for him. I don't think you recover from something like that. And we'll see if he can recover from something like Amazing Spider-Man 2. That is a black stain on anyone's resume. But luckily, there's only that. And the Amazing Spider-Man 1, at least, has some good things about it. Mm-hmm. Not that it matters anymore, but, you know. We can all forget about those movies. They will become part of our collective amnesia. And hopefully what Marvel does with the character will be good. You know?
Like, I wonder if they will ever, like, someone involved with those movies will ever come out and say what the plan was, specifically with the parent subplot.
Yeah.
Because that was always the part that mystified me the most about those movies, is I just want to know what they were going to do, especially since they kept on cutting it out from the movies. What was that going to be?
I honestly hope someone writes a book at some point about those two movies and how they came to be and what the plan was, all of that, because I think it would be fascinating. Because it clearly, just from the outside looking in, we can all tell it is this fascinating case study in weird studio interference and stuff, because Mark Webb and the people making it had one idea, the studio had a different idea, And I think probably within the studio and within the movie production, there were lots of different ideas.
Yeah, and it would be a really interesting insight into sort of the pitfalls of the modern Hollywood franchise movies, like the thing that everyone's trying to do, and this is the first one to, like, completely implode in on itself,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I say that because sometimes you do get fascinating books out of situations like this.
Yeah.
Different movie stories. So I crossing my fingers for that. Some investigative journalist wants to do that. Well, that means they might have to watch those movies again, which they'd have to be braver than me, or be really familiar with alcohol and just be able to drink through them.
Yeah.
I bet you could make a pretty good drinking game out of The Amazing Spider-Man 2. You'd have to have a doctor on standby to pump your stomach.
Yeah, take a shot every time a subplot goes nowhere. You're dead by the end of the movie.
Yes, and Andrew Garfield can do movies he's good in now, and all those. Yeah,
he doesn't have to pretend to be in high school anymore.
No,
he's free.
He's a 30-year-old dude. He's an adult.
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm excited to see what Marvel's going to do with the character. How they're going to introduce him.
Yeah,
and how they're going to integrate him. I've heard people say, and I don't think Marvel's going to do this, but there have been people asking for the Miles Morales version, which is the modern Ultimate Spider-Man after Ultimate Peter Parker died. It would be interesting to see them try to tackle that. There's no way that Marvel would.
Don't you kind of have to have Peter somewhere in the universe first?
Well, yeah, I would kind of say that, but I can see how, from a certain perspective, because one, Miles Morales is black, so it would be a nice sort of play for diversity.
You could also just have a black Peter Parker.
Yeah.
There's no problem with that.
That's true,
guys.
Yeah, but it would also be a way to get around the. We have just had another Peter Parker in movies. Yeah. But I don't think Marvel's ever going to do that. But it's an interesting sort of thought experiment to think of the different ways you can try to do Spider-Man and get around this weird, just aborted movie franchise that you just came from.
No, and I think that'd be fine. And I think, as Marvel goes forward, no reason not to introduce Miles Morales at some point here or later.
Yeah.
But, I hopefully the sky's the limit now. And I said this on Twitter when this news happened, and I still believe it. I would not be surprised if by the time that standalone Spider-Man movie comes out, the rights, Sony just signs it all over to Marvel. Because I don't know if Sony Pictures will be around that long, quite frankly. And, I think the power is going to shift more and more to Marvel from here. Which
and maybe then in all, the switching hands with the rights and stuff. Maybe at some point the video game rights can leave Activision, because Activision has had it for 15 fucking years, and they have done jack shit with it, making all these shitty Amazing Spider-Man movie games.
Yeah.
Hopefully that can go to some some developers like Rocksteady that actually want to make a good Spider-Man game and are afforded the opportunity to do it.
That'd be cool. Although Marvel has never really made games out of their movies.
Yeah, but I don't want a game based on the movie, but I want the character rights to go to someone that can make the game. You know, just using the character.
A Spider-Man clone of the Batman games, where Spider-Man just mercilessly beats people.
Yeah, it's just honestly, just take Batman Arkham Asylum, and just change the skins of all the characters.
Yeah,
don't even change the voice acting. Just that's all I need.
So Spider-Man is voiced by
Kevin Conroy.
Yeah, Kevin Conroy. That'd be great. Who is Mark Hamill in this scenario?
I think the Green Goblin would have to be the closest character equivalent.
Sounds good. All right.
Spider-Man is just throwing ice grenades at people, and it's just not even explained.
Yeah. All right, so that's that piece of news. Let's see if there's any other movie stuff. While we're on... did you see the photo of Aquaman that came out?
Yeah, that's stupid. DC's doing stupid shit in their movies. That's not news, though.
I know. God, and then there's been all this news because they're gearing up for making their Suicide Squad movie. Which is the only part of their whole plan that sounds even vaguely interesting to me because it's got good people working on it. But we'll see. That could honestly be just nixed by if they're aiming for a PG-13, and then it's you've ruined it anyway. But if you haven't seen that photo of Aquaman, look it up. It is so ridiculous, and it confirms yes, they are going to be applying the Chris Nolan Batman tone to absolutely everything.
Yeah.
And B, these characters look extra stupid when you try to make them look not stupid.
Yeah. And especially when you put these stupid color filters on all your fucking photos of them. It's just fucking take a fucking picture of the guy. They did the same thing with Wonder Woman. They also did the same thing with their stupid, like, teasing of, like, the Batman thing with Batman v Superman. Just take a fucking picture, assholes. I don't want it to be sepia-toned or, like, black and white.
Yeah.
Like, I can't tell what the character is supposed to look like. I know that you're, like, muting all the colors, but I have to assume that he's not supposed to just look like he's in a black and white movie. That presumably there is some color in his costume somewhere.
Yeah. No, it's awful, and I think around the same time, someone from DC or Warner Brothers said, I think what sets DC apart from Marvel is that we make gritty and realistic movies that people can relate to. It's like, you haven't made any movies yet.
Yeah.
Your whole fucking thing has not started yet. Shut the fuck up until you have something to show us. B, no you don't. Making something dark does not, and gritty, A, is not always good, and B, does not make it realistic. Chris Nolan's Batman movies, I love them. They are not realistic.
Yeah.
I hate when people describe those films as realistic. They are not.
Yeah. And then especially as soon as you get outside of Batman, it's like, sorry, there is no way to do realistic Superman. There's no way to do realistic Aquaman. There sure as shit is no way to do realistic Green Lantern,
And it's... Every indication is that they are making stupid choices with their movie universe, and yet they have all these great people roped in to make these movies. Like, Michelle MacLaren is directing the Wonder Woman movie. She is one of the best directors on TV in the last couple of years. She directed more episodes of Breaking Bad than anybody, and if you've seen Breaking Bad, you know that is visually probably the best show ever made. I would love to see her make a superhero movie. She is so talented. I'm really worried she'll have nowhere to go with Wonder Woman. And
I can't wait till, like, with all the storylines of Wonder Woman making meth in her movie. That's the whole plot.
Yeah, but or the Suicide Squad one. That's David Ayers. He's a smart guy, a good cast.
Yeah.
And that's the only one where the dark gritty thing could actually work, though.
Yeah,
so
because it's a band of villains as your main characters.
Maybe that movie works. But then I'm also worried that if they try to do the overarching continuity thing, that could sink all of these movies. I'm worried that Wonder Woman will already be defined by the Batman vs. Superman movie by the time people who are smart get to try to define her in their own movie.
Jonathan, Batman v Superman.
V Superman, okay.
Let's at least get that part of the title right.
Right, I gotta remember it's like a Supreme Court case.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I just can't wait till they release their publicity photo of Green Lantern, and you can't even tell that he's green.
Yeah.
Because, like, the colors are so muted.
That's
it's
true.
Just like, is he just a Black Lantern? Because those are a thing. Or do you want to just make Black Lantern at some point and not Green Lantern?
Yeah. And look, I understand wanting to differentiate yourself from Marvel, but at the same time, like...
The characters already
that's what I was going to say.
That, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, the DC style in comics is already differentiated. You don't need to make it Batman gritty to do that for all your characters.
No, I totally agree. And the thing is, no one is learning these lessons. I had on the outline, I don't want to go into it as a topic or anything, but like 2 months ago, or a month and a half ago, like right after we did our last podcast, the trailer for the new Fantastic Four finally came out, which apparently they've been hiding because the studio is terrified of it because it's apparently really, really bad.
Yeah, because
that trailer is awful. And
it's like... I swear to God, like, I am a huge fucking fan of the Fantastic Four. If you're just watching that trailer and you did not know that it was supposed to be a Fantastic Four trailer, aside from, like, a shot of kind of the Thing and, like, the Human Torch flaming on, you would never know that that's a Fantastic Four movie.
No.
You would have no fucking clue. Other than when, like, the two visually iconic characters, like, that don't have really costumes are on screen... Outside of those two shots, you would have no fucking idea. And how disappointing is that as a fan of that franchise, that when you're watching the trailer, I can't identify who the characters are supposed to be unless they're on fire or a rock guy, you know?
The whole trailer, it's got that, if you haven't seen it, it's got the super, like, sappy choral music over it. It's all the long fades in and out.
Yeah, the new trailer style that's, like, evolved from the blah that everyone is using now.
Right, when you want to make your movie look important.
Yeah.
And it's like...
Soulful.
So clearly they're trying to position this as, this is the serious Fantastic Four, this is the gritty Fantastic Four, this is the hyper-emotional Fantastic Four. And, who knows, the movie could be good. I'm not going to judge it until we see it. But based on that, it's just, why would anyone want to watch that? Why the fuck would you look at, of all superheroes, Fantastic Four, and say, you know what this needs? More realism and grittiness.
Yeah, exactly.
Fuck you. You don't get it. Everyone wants to do the superhero thing because Marvel is doing it successfully. Yeah. Nobody understands why Marvel is doing it successfully. And that's because And the thing is, the Marvel movies have better character psychology and better actual realism, quote unquote, to what they do than any of these other movie franchises. Mm-hmm. But they do it while also having fun. And people think that fun is what people don't want in the... I don't get it.
Yeah. Apparently, like, you just need to sit all those movie producers in a room and just, like, have them watch Thor 2. It's just like, look at fucking Thor 2. Look how much fun this movie is, God damn it. It's not the greatest movie in the world, but it's like, it's super entertaining and you just love watching it.
Let's go
Make movies like that.
Let's go even simpler than that. Robert Downey Jr. is the guy who made this whole thing work, right?
Yeah.
If you don't have him, Marvel doesn't get to build their empire. Why do people like Robert Downey Jr. in Iron Man? He's fucking funny.
Yeah.
He's a lot of other things. It's a great, multifaceted performance. But, you know, the first thing is he's fun to watch.
Yeah.
And Chris Hemsworth, he's fun to watch. Mm-hmm. Chris Evans is fun to watch. All the Chris's. Chris Pratt, fun to... Whatever other Chris's they're going to get in there.
Yeah.
Mark Ruffalo, and sadly his name is not Chris, but he is fun to watch in those movies. Yeah. Scarlett Johansson. That's the commonality.
Fucking Samuel L. motherfucking Jackson.
Yes.
Super fun to watch in those movies.
They all have charisma. They have presence. They're not brooding and want to slip their wrists all the time.
Yeah, they crack jokes. They have emotional diversity to them that speaks to the viewer and allows you to have dramatic moments and comedic moments and allows the movie to have a complex and fulfilling tone and theme to it.
Oh, God. I just can't wait until we get to Avengers 2 and we only have good things to talk about because clearly that movie is going to be fucking great. I mean, I don't... Awesome. There's been so many trailers for that movie, there's not much to talk about because they've also been pretty much the same thing every time.
Yeah.
Which is good. They're not giving stuff away, I'm glad.
Yeah.
But how good does that movie look?
Yeah, those trailers are really fun. They're like...
James Spader as Ultron sounds so fucking great. Yeah.
The fucking... It's just a Pinocchio song that's in all the trailers. That's really good.
The total Joss Whedon touch of...
This awesome remix of this like kind of goofy Disney song.
Hey man, it really looks like they have let Joss Whedon off the leash, which I love the idea of.
Yeah.
Because he is a madman deep down. And I think...
I mean, you the only person who could possibly, like, wrangle all those characters together in one movie, make it work, has to be just fucking insane at some point.
No, there was an insanity that allowed the Avengers 1 to work, and there's going to be an insanity that will allow this to work. And whoever they get to, you know, replace him, because I think he's probably done after this, which... Don't blame him. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, but it's also nice because you do also want other people to get in and like tell their stories with the characters.
Totally, and it'll be a tough act to follow, but I'm excited to see what other mad, crazy people they can find.
Yeah,
it sounds like it'll be the Russo brothers at this point, which is good. They are also insane.
Yeah.
In any case, because they made both Yumi and Dupree and Captain America the Winter Soldier, and that fact will never stop amusing me.
Like, hopefully they have some, like, cachet with the rights for Yumi and Dupree so they can just, like, bring that world and those characters into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's, like, the big, like, teaser at the end of Captain America fucking 3.
I would like to see Owen Wilson in a Marvel movie. He'd actually be good.
Walks in.
All right. I actually kind of like Yumi and Dupree. One of those.
It's a fine movie.
It's a good movie.
I saw it once, like 10 years ago, or whenever the fuck that movie came out.
Owen Wilson is really funny in it.
Yeah, Owen Wilson's a funny guy.
Yeah. Anyway, So let's see. Any other movie stuff? I want to talk about two movies really quick. I saw.
Okay.
One to make fun of, one to praise. Basic one is so Jupiter Ascending came out. I think.
Fuck right.
Yeah,
I haven't seen it, but
that was like mid-February. It came out, right?
Wachowski,
the new Wachowski siblings movie.
Yeah,
and I went to see it because I do like the Wachowskis. I've liked their post-Matrix work a lot. Actually, I think Speed Racer was absurdly fun, and was kind of an amazing realization of that. That's one that is an act of insanity. That whole movie is an act. Someone went crazy and made a Speed Racer movie, and it doesn't shock me that Speed Racer bombed at the box office. It shocks me that someone at Warner Brothers thought that was worth $100 million.
It's like, wait, so you want to make this movie based off this anime, but you more want to just make a movie based off of the English dub of this anime. What?
And God bless him for it. Yeah. Speed Racer is great. Speed Racer is like nothing else, and it is so much fun.
Go Speed Racer, go.
And then I really liked Cloud Atlas. That was on my top 10 the year that came out, 2012. So I'm always interested in their work, and even like the Matrix sequels, which don't work.
No.
There are interesting things in so much as they are directors who really try big ideas and swing for the fences, and they have a style unlike anyone else. Yeah. And, frankly, the Matrix 1, that's the kind of work that that's enough for a lifetime. You get kind of a free pass. That is a good enough movie, you know, even if they made nothing else. But they are. So anyway, went to see Jupiter Ascending, even though all signs pointed to no on this one.
Yeah, the reception of that movie was not particularly good.
I walked out of Jupiter Ascending.
Okay.
I never walk out of movies. Ever. I just don't do that. I've done that a couple times in my life, and they were always for other mitigating factors. Mm-hmm. Like when I was a kid, I thought Anchorman looked really funny, and my dad took me to see it, and I was too young to see Anchorman, and we walked out because he was a responsible parent, I guess. Yes. But anyway, so there's that. And then a couple years later, I went to see a movie a couple years ago, and I walked out because someone in the theater was so annoying. I just left. I was like, can you just give me my money? Can you give me a rain check? I'll come see it again, but I'm not going to do it. I'm like, sure. So anyway, there's that.
Did the guy just start throwing chocolate chips at people? Is that what was annoying you?
No, it was a laugh. It was talking plus laughing inappropriately and just anyway. Yeah. But yeah. And then, so yeah, Jupiter Ascending, I think, is the only movie I've walked out of just for... No, there was a movie at the Denver Film Festival last year that I left 5 minutes before the end because I could not let myself say I saw the whole thing. It was. I knew the movie was.
Took a moral stance.
It was so bad. It's this fucking Italian movie called Human Capital that's actually playing here at CU in the IFS in a couple weeks. Don't and go throw shit at the screen. Don't really, because that's our expensive theater. Don't do that.
That's just extremely rude to everyone else there.
Yeah, but Human Capital, it's an Italian soap opera movie. It's just one of the worst things I've ever seen, and people are praising it because it's in a foreign language, so it must be smart and intelligent. No.
Well, if you spend the whole movie just reading the subtitles and not paying attention to what's on screen, maybe you can have fun.
Maybe. It's so bad. But anyway, so Jupiter Ascending, walked out about an hour in because, I went to, and just, this is a movie where everything went wrong. The story is it is all exposition. There is no plot with forward-moving action. It is all explaining stuff. Channing Tatum, who is dressed up to look like a wolf man, in that he's got a weird nose and a weird goatee and weird ears, but he's not quite a wolf. It's fucking bizarre. If you're a woman who's into furries and hot dudes, I think you would go crazy for this movie because Channing Tatum would check both of those boxes for you.
Sure.
And
if you're a huge fan of drawn out exposition, it's that's the movie for you.
And that's the thing. So Channing Tatum, not only weird makeup, but he is there solely to deliver exposition to Mila Kunis, which, if you have seen movies with Channing Tatum recently, he's such a funny, charismatic guy that is such a waste of his talents. Yeah. They do at least, they have him take his shirt off about 10 minutes in, and from the time I left, it had never come back on. So, I think they got that side of his appeal, but,
Sure.
Whatever. I can't comment on that, but, Yeah. Whatever, I think that's funny. It's like in Lost Season 5, Sawyer lost his shirt in the first scene, and he didn't get it back on until midway through that season. Because of how that season was structured with the time travel.
Right, yeah.
He had a hard time finding his shirt. Anyway, so yeah, there's that. There's Mila Kunis, who's a good actress, totally just stranded in a bland, chosen one plot. It's all exposition. There's some really, really nice visuals. That is one thing. This would make a phenomenal, coffee table book of production design art. But as a movie, no.
Yeah.
So really well designed and all that. But then, the acting is so... Channing Tatum and Mila Kunis just bland. But not bad. But then Eddie Redmayne. Oscar winner Eddie Redmayne for playing Stephen Hawking now. He won an Oscar 2 months ago. It's one of the worst performances I've ever seen. He's doing this thing where he's the bad guy, but he's got something wrong with him, and he's always whispering his dialogue she shall submit to me, that kind of thing.
Sure.
All the time. I can't do it like he's doing it. It is.
I think I know what you're getting at, though.
It's a cacophony of badness, just that one performance. And just everything doesn't...
Do you think it would have been better if he had just played the role as Stephen Hawking?
Yes, that would have actually been kind of entertaining. With the voice box
a super villain Stephen Hawking, I think that'd be fucking awesome.
That'd be great. Then Sean Bean comes in at some point to introduce us to...
Did you get to the point in the movie where he dies?
Apparently he lives.
Nah, that's a really bad movie then.
I know, that's really...
If you can't even kill off Sean Bean in your movie, what are you doing?
Yeah. Anyway, but he is there to deliver the exposition about the bees, because Mila Kunis is chosen from an alien race or some shit, and she comes to his house because they need to hide, and Sean Bean is a friend of Wolfman Channing Tatum. And so...
Wait, so is Sean Bean also a Wolfman, or is he human?
He's human. Well, he's an alien, but he looks human.
Okay.
But he's not a Wolfman, from what I can tell. Anyway, but he's the old, grizzled dude. Anyway, she comes to his house, and his house has like a wasp nest, and the wasp nest bursts, and there's all these bees, and they sting Channing Tatum, and then they sting other people, and then they come to Mila Kunis, and they just soar around her, and then Sean Bean drops to one knee and says, "My queen," and she says, "How do you know I'm a queen?" And it's because the bees will not harm you, and bees are naturally attracted to beings they know to be royalty. I am not.
We should go grab the Queen of England and test this hypothesis right now. Just fucking throw her into a fucking pit of bee nests. This is like, watch as she commands them, like soars into the sky aloft upon a bed of bees.
And I am not exaggerating. That is literally how they learn that she is royalty. They don't know what kind of royalty yet, but they know she's a queen of something because the bees, these are not special bees, these are earth bees.
It's like all the political theorists of like the 15th century had it wrong with the divine right of kings. It's the bee right of kings. The bees, no, it's not about God. The bees are the ones who decide whether or not you are royal blood.
So that scene was something else. But anyway, I left like 20 minutes. That was about 20 minutes after that. And I left because like clearly this movie wasn't going anywhere. It was kind of torture to sit through, and I have to sit through at least at least 5 movies per week in classes.
Right.
Most of them that I don't really enjoy, to be perfectly honest. And I'm just a little burned out on watching movies, period, right now. Just because.
Yeah, no, I get that. Like, when I'm taking classes, I do not read books outside of what I'm reading.
Yeah.
Reading for the classes.
Okay, and so it's not just me.
You get burned out on it. Yeah,
you get burned out on it. So a movie really has to capture my attention right now, and so I think under different circumstances, I could have sat through Jupiter Ascending. It was interesting in some parts, but
sure.
No, and so I walked out, and to the credit of the people at the Cinemark Boulder, they refunded my money. They gave me a free ticket, and I
did you just like walk up to the desk and like looked up and he's Jupiter Ascending, right? Yeah. It's like, here's your money, man. I'm sorry.
Not quite that easy, but it was close. Yeah, so
they can just tell by the look in your eyes.
They have a hilarious policy there. If you come out within the first half hour, they will give you your money back, no question. So if you can tell the movie's bad in half an hour, they're fine with it.
Fuck yeah.
I think that's funny. Anyway, but so I used that free ticket, came back the next week, and saw Kingsman: The Secret Service.
I've been wanting to see that movie.
So
it sounds good.
Yeah. It is so much fun. That's one of those movies I walked out just feeling like I'm on cloud 9.
That's by the guy who made X-Men First Class, right?
Yes, and more importantly, Kick-Ass, Matthew Vaughn.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And I would say it's closer. Matthew Vaughn is an insane person.
Yeah,
he likes just batshit crazy shit in his movies, and I think Kick-Ass came close to completely cutting loose. Kingsman, I don't know how this movie got made at some point. There are some things in it that are just... Matthew Vaughn had a psychotic episode and got to make this movie, and that's great. It's a James Bond movie made by a crazy person, and I love it. The last hour, there's a scene in a church with Colin Firth massacring Westboro Baptist church types that is one of the greatest things and weirdest things I've ever seen, and then it only gets weirder from there.
Because then the bees come in.
It's everything about, it does the basic just narrative of the... So this is one of those James Bond knockoff stories. And in addition to loving James Bond, I actually love that subgenre of the James Bond knockoff stories. Mm-hmm. I read a bunch of those kinds of books when I was a kid, like the Alex Rider books and stuff like that. I love that kind of spy teen fiction stuff. And this is one of those, except R-rated and made by a crazy person. And I love that. But it gets the beats right. Like the main character... who's this, British kid, or Welsh, I think, and just his evolution from, punk to suave spy is, really actually fulfilling, and by the end you feel like you've gone on a real journey with this character. Mm-hmm. The Colin Firth character is so great. It's just a really good arc. It's so creative. It's a lot of fun. It's tight. It's fast-paced. It does not lag in the way a lot of movies do now, which is awesome. So, it's got great action, all these things. But the thing I have to say about it most that I have to recommend is Samuel L. Jackson is the bad guy in this movie.
Right, yeah.
He has a lisp. Mm-hmm. It is one of the funniest funny voices I have ever heard. I am not kidding. There was no moment Samuel L. Jackson was on screen when I was not cackling to myself. Just him talking was funny. It is so great. And I like funny voices in comedy. I think that's something that can be done well. That is one of the heights of comedy, as P. Sellers taught us.
Sure, yeah.
And Samuel L. Jackson does a good funny voice. So
nice.
It is a great movie. So I loved that. totally. So, and I have not seen a movie since. I did not go see 50 Shades of Grey. Although...
I mean, I know this will surprise you, Jonathan, but I have not seen it either.
I will say, I am happy that movie exists for all the mashup trailers that are out there. Did you see the 50 Shades of Grey Batman mashup trailer?
No.
It's called 50 Shades of Wayne. And this guy intercut it, so it's all the footage of, like, the chick in 50 Shades of Grey, the woman. But then whenever it cuts to, the dude, Grey, I guess is his name, it's Bruce Wayne, it's Christian Bale. And they do all this creative intercutting where when he's taking her to, like, the sex room in 50 Shades of Grey, it's the Bat Cave.
Nice.
And all this stuff. It is so funny. And, like, at the moment of, like, the climax in the trailer, it's him yelling, Rachel! It's so great. It's a really... And then there was one done with Legos. It was a good internet thing for, like, a couple weeks there.
I liked all the headlines I saw on the internet about random theaters that accidentally showed 50 Shades of Grey when it was a screening for, like, the SpongeBob movie or something.
Yes.
That was my favorite part of the 50 Shades of Grey. Or, like, someone who got really mad at some, like, retro drive-in theater that was showing 50 Shades of Grey because it's, like, there's just a bunch of sex scenes in that movie. So
Yeah.
Like,
oh,
that's maybe not the best thing to air at a fucking drive-in.
Here's the funniest part. So I was down in Golden, where my mom lives, doing some work, and I met up with her just to have dinner one night. And she told me, she says, Jonathan, have you heard of this movie 50 Shades of Grey? And I'm like, yeah, it's kind of a big deal. She said, I went to see that movie. She went on Valentine's Day with her boyfriend because she just thought it was like the new romantic comedy kind of thing.
She didn't know what it was.
She had no idea what it was about.
Fuck.
And she was like, is that a real thing people do? I'm like, yes, and actually it is perfectly healthy behavior in most people. Like, it's a thing that most people don't do it in the weird way that movie portrays it.
Sure, yeah.
It's a thing consenting adults do, and it's fine. But
like, here, Mom, let me give you some internet search terms you should know.
But that was awkward. I basically had to explain...
having to explain BDSM to your mother.
Yeah.
I imagine that would have to be a very awkward conversation.
Because, right, like, it's... And that's part of the thing I've seen a lot of people complaining about online is all the BDSM people talking about how the movie misrepresents their fetishes. That has been a series of funny articles, too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, like, this community that's obviously already, like, really misunderstood and, like, portrayed poorly in media, and then they're just like, God damn it, we get a whole fucking movie made about this subculture, and then it has to be this.
Also, I read the plot synopses of the 50 Shades of Grey sequels on the internet a couple weeks ago.
That must have been an interesting read.
It was so funny. So that first movie is just about this chick and this dude, and he's into BDSM, and at the end they break up or something. Like, that's the story. There's nothing to it. I learned that from my mom, who was confused by the ending. So I had to walk her through it. I've not seen it or read it or anything, but anyway. In the sequels, like, it gets super weird. Like, there's a whole shootout in one of the books.
Nice.
There's, like, a car chase. It's amazing. And they're going to have to make
It probably ends with, like, the main character finding out that she's some sort of, like, alien royalty.
Yeah.
Because she communes with the bees.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that gray guy has been actually, like, he's trying to kill her the whole time or something.
Yeah. Man, but
there's some sort of, like,
also,
international space law that if you're into BDSM, you can't, like, take the throne.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw this. The other funny thing to come out of this movie existing is that apparently everyone who worked on it was miserable. The director hated
I've read those stories as well.
And the actors hate each other.
Yeah.
So
and I think my favorite was, like, reading all these stories about the director just, like, almost getting in fights with the author of the original novel who was on set.
Author, which we should say in air quotes, because
the fan fiction author.
Yes.
Who was on set.
Which, oh my god, and the thing is, it's directed by Sam Taylor Johnson, she's like has a long history of, like, she's an artist who's in, like, art installations in galleries, and she made this really good movie actually called Nowhere Boy about John Lennon's youth in Liverpool. Great movie. I mean, money will make people do anything, I guess, but, you know, and hey, more power to her. Everyone's got to pay the bills, but it's like, if they're going to do a sequel to that, they're going to have to, like, recast everything and get new people to make it. It's fucking hilarious. But
maybe they'll just make a deal with, like, Marvel, where, like, Marvel will be able to use those characters in their like, big movies, but then, like, they allow, like, them to make their own movies with it.
Chris Hemsworth is Christian Grey.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be great if he did it.
Thor and Jane are getting into some really weird shit.
That would be great if he did it in character as Thor.
Yeah.
Hammer would take on a whole different meaning.
Yeah.
All right. Other movie news. I just want to talk about for the phenomenon of it. Disney yesterday, we're recording this on a Friday. Yesterday, Disney announced officially what the name of the first Star Wars spinoff is. The one being directed by Gareth Edwards, who did Godzilla. So obviously I'm excited for that. Just he's a good director, good people writing it. It's called Star Wars Rogue One. They didn't really divulge plot details, but they said Felicity Jones, also from the Theory of Everything movie. She's a great actress. She'll be starring in it, which is cool. I like getting a female-driven Star Wars movie. That should be fun. And Rogue One, I think that implies to me it'll be kind of a dogfighter kind of movie.
Yeah, Rogue Squadron is like the X-Wing team that was like Luke was a part of.
Yeah.
Which maybe we'll get some Wedge Antilles in that movie.
And I'm honestly, in some ways, more excited for these spin-offs because I like them just being able to explore other corners of the universe.
Yeah, because it's such a rich universe that you can kind of do whatever you want with it.
So that sounds fun. But anyway, I mean, it's funny because even after this came out, news sites that should know better were still saying, we have a title for the Boba Fett movie. It's not a Boba Fett movie. No one has said that. Yeah. That's a total conjecture. No one involved in these movies has ever said anything about that. And I don't think Star Wars Rogue One is going to be a Boba Fett movie.
No, you wouldn't call it Rogue One. If
Felicity Jones is not playing Boba Fett.
But that would be a really great twist.
It would be, but...
If, like, Boba Fett takes off his helmet, it's like, nah, Boba Fett's a girl. Boba Fett's been a girl the whole time. You didn't even know.
Yeah, So whatever.
That's how he survived the Sarlacc pit.
Just, entertainment news sites are just fucking scum. Scum of the earth. They don't know anything about fucking journalistic integrity. It disgusts me. A lot of them. I trust HitFix, and that's about where my line ends. That's what I read.
But the majority of is like for any sort of like video games or movies or whatever, most of those sites that report on that stuff on the internet, it's not so good. Like they just kind of report whatever will get people to click on stories. Yeah.
Anyway, and then Star Wars Episode 8 has been confirmed. Rian Johnson will be writing and directing it, making him the first person since George Lucas to write and direct a Star Wars movie, which is interesting. And he's a great writer-director. I'm really psyched for that. And they are trying to get that out for May 2017, which I think can be done because they have him working on it far enough ahead of time.
Yeah.
Star Wars, we're getting close.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what that movie is going to be. Like, it's like... Even if it's bad, like it'll be interesting to see what other people taking the helm of a Star Wars movie would even be like. You know, and like George Lucas not involved at all.
And again, not knowing anything about Episode 7 yet, I don't think it's going to be bad. I think Disney is so committed to making it good. From what I've heard, also they gave a lot of freedom to everyone working on the film. I don't think this will be like an Amazing Spider-Man thing. I think they're committed. They know that your movies have to be good if they're going to be hits.
Yeah,
not always, but most. 50 Shades of Grey.
But it doesn't help if the movie's good.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt. It does help.
Yeah.
It does not hurt.
It can only help if the movie's good. Yes. So anyway, Star Wars stuff is coming on, but I just love that created this internet firestorm. It's like, well, you knew most of that, and you're adding stuff that isn't true.
Yeah.
So whatever. But within this is another phenomenon I want to talk about. So Disney did this whole meeting yesterday. They announced that stuff. They announced an interesting new policy. They have had at Disney, like for their animation and live action departments, a policy for a while of they will not depict smoking on screen.
Yes.
They have now officially extended that to Pixar and to Marvel. So are there any Marvel characters who smoke where this will be a problem?
Nick Fury smokes cigars like a motherfucker. He doesn't like smoke cigarettes.
Yeah.
But like I don't know. I can't remember if Samuel L. Jackson. There must be some scenes where he's chomping on cigars. But
I'm pretty sure he does in either Iron Man 2 or the Avengers. I think you see that. Yeah. But anyway, I don't...
the comics, he's always has a fucking cigar in his mouth.
So whatever. I mean, smoking is bad. So it's not like you can be mad at that.
It's not a big deal.
Yeah. I think sometimes we get too upset about it in media because I think smoking can actually be a really interesting thing to portray in fiction. And
it also can be, especially if you're doing, a period piece, it's such, a visually dynamic thing, especially if you're doing black and white.
Well, and they have said their policy does allow for period pieces. That's okay. But yeah. Although... This was one of the things I hated about their movie Saving Mr. Banks, the one about Disney stealing Mary Poppins. But they made it look like Disney was a good guy in that, and he wasn't. Anyway, they had Disney, who was a habitual smoker and died from it. He had lung cancer and died at the age of 58. They had him, he's like, I'm trying to quit, and he puts his cigarettes away. Fuck you. that is such a, heliography kind of, or hagiography.
I don't know what you're trying to say.
Hagiography? It's like biography, but you don't know that word?
No.
It's the kind of biography where you're just trying to build the person up, and
that doesn't come up a lot in my life.
Anyway, I think it's hagiography, but anyway, it's got a lot of G's in it. Anywho, so that was stupid.
That would be 2 G's.
Final piece of news, though. I found this interesting for a different. Anyway, I'll have to explain it first. Okay. So they officially announced they're making Frozen 2. Not a surprise. Yes. Frozen is the 5th highest grossing movie ever, and by far the highest grossing animated film ever. It is a phenomenon.
But are you telling me they're going to break the classic Disney tradition of making shitty direct-to-DVD sequels of their movies instead of making theatrical sequels to their movies?
No, it'll be theatrical, and they're bringing back the writers and directors of the first movie. Everyone's going to be back.
What?
However, this comes... I'm not shitting you. Earlier, so this was Thursday. Earlier in the week, BuzzFeed published an interview with the directors, writers of Frozen, who said, "We haven't thought about making Frozen 2 yet because we don't have a story. If we ever have a good idea for a story, we'd want to make it. But story comes first." And not 2 days later, Disney announces, we're making Frozen 2 with these guys.
Jonathan, story comes first.
Story, it's just so funny. Like, that is so tone deaf to do that back to back.
Yeah.
I mean, it's... And Frozen, if you've seen it, there's no reason to do... I don't know how you do a sequel to Frozen. That is a terrible idea.
Well, you do a story about, like, the kids of the characters from Frozen.
That's true, in the model of Disney direct-to-video sequels.
Exactly. Like, they've done this, like, 15 fucking times.
Right.
I think they can handle it.
And so they have the exact same adventure as their parents.
Exactly.
But, yeah.
Yeah.
My favorite of those was either... just in terms of being bad, was either Little Mermaid 2, where it was literally a human girl wants to marry a merman. They just reversed it. Or Lady and the Tramp 2, Scamp's Adventure, where Scamp, who's like the little tramp, falls in love with another dog. It was so blatant. Those ones back in the day. Yeah. It's so funny.
Like, I think that Frozen, they should name Frozen 2 Melted, and it should be a post-apocalyptic movie with all the Frozen characters in a world where, like, all the ice has melted, the Ice Lady has lost her powers.
It's about the Ice Lady trying to fix our planet after global warming decimates it.
But, like, she still has her powers, but, like, everything's so hot that it's, like, they're not effective anymore. Yeah.
Whatever. Maybe it can be a crossover with Samuel L. Jackson's character from The Incredibles, Frozone.
Right, yeah.
That'd be great. That's what Frozen 2 could just be Frozone, and it's a spin-off.
Frozen 2, Enter the Frozone.
Yeah. That would be... I'd pay good money to see that.
I probably wouldn't. I would probably
still
not watch it.
Frozen 1 was shit. Yeah, I said it. All right. Any other movie stuff?
I mean, that movie was not made for you, Jonathan. It was made for 12-year-old girls.
Yeah, I have some TV discussion now, but I think I'll save that for next week if we talk about it.
Okay.
Basic message here. Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt premiered on Netflix, and for the week, because they do that thing where they release it all at once, for the 5 days where I had it to watch before I ran out of episodes, that was the greatest source of joy in my life. That is a fantastic show.
Cool.
It's the new one from Tina Fey and Robert Carlock, who made 30 Rock. And stars Ellie Kemper from The Office, who played Erin. But she has an actual character to play here, not a weird collection of ticks, because that's what The Office was at the point she came on.
Right. I probably had stopped watching The Office by the time that character came on, because I don't remember.
She's a great actress, but yeah, that was not the great period of The Office. So, oh well. Let's see. So that's just TV stuff for now. But let's go ahead and talk about some game stuff.
All right.
Was there any news before we build up to Persona? I want to talk about, so our last podcast, 7 years ago, was the one about the state of the modern video game consoles.
Yeah, so when we were talking about the Xbox and the PS2.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember that.
Xbox and PS2. And just to follow up on that, so the Xbox recently got a firmware update where it has screenshots now, and they made a couple of other little improvements. So that's nice. I actually did not know the Xbox didn't have screenshots.
Yeah, I didn't know that either until I saw that.
And I own an Xbox One, so a little weird. But now they have it. It's the same thing. You just double press the Xbox button. Now you press Y for that. I actually took a screenshot earlier, and I haven't looked at it. I don't know how you choose the moment. I wonder how that comes out.
Huh, yeah.
That's always kind of a risk. It's the same thing in, on the PS4, too. You can't be, moving. You want to make sure you are still. Anyway, but so there's that. And PS4 is going to have a firmware update soon that really is, I think, the first huge, significant update that system has seen.
Yeah. Yeah, because, they definitely cleaned up the UI in a lot of useful ways the last update, but there wasn't anything, massive.
Yeah, but now they're going to have, the big one is suspend resume mode.
Yeah.
Which I will tell you right now, that is one of the coolest features of the Xbox One. Like with Sleeping Dogs, I just turn it off, turn it back on, I'm right where I was. Did that with Dragon Age, and it doesn't work with Halo because of the way Halo works.
Yeah.
But with most of the games, it works flawlessly, and it is so cool. I love, because that's what I do on my Vita and my 3DS, and I love it. And I love being able to do that on a console. So then bringing that to the PS4 is definitely awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What else is there in that update? Do you remember?
One of the things that's cool, obviously it's not really for us, but I think it's just a cool thing that they're doing, is they're putting in a bunch of features for disabled people to use the PS4. There's one that seems really interesting, that on the system level itself, you can change button assignments. So you could change, all the like the face buttons could be like the D-pad or whatever like you wanted to do. For people who like have issues with their hands or stuff like that, you could reassign the buttons on the controller to be in different spots that are more convenient for you. So obviously it would be a thing that like you would probably have to change it based on which game you're playing. But it's and there's like a lot of other sort of like accessibility features that they're putting in that I think is just like it's a really cool thing, that's obviously not something that we would take advantage of. But it's nice that there are people thinking about that kind of thing when they're designing these consoles.
I love that, and I just love free button mapping on a system level.
Yeah.
I can't think of another system that's done that, but I like being able to button map. I like on the 3DS or Wii U you can do that with Virtual Console, and on Vita you can do it with PS1 games. That's just always cool to be able to make your own decisions there, and definitely on an accessibility level, that's an awesome progressive kind of thing to do. Yeah.
I can't like. There's some other stuff that I can't like. Obviously, like you said, the big one is the suspend resume thing,
which I'm really curious to see how that'll work in that UI and how that'll look and everything.
Yeah,
I wonder if there'll be any updates to kind of accommodate that, because it's really obviously part of why the Xbox One does it the way they do with that window when you come out to the menu and it's still playing is for that mode.
Yeah,
and that's helpful for that. So we'll see. I wonder how PS4 will handle that, but it's definitely cool. Then they, at GDC this year was all about the VR stuff.
Yeah.
And honestly, that could be a topic for another episode if we want to talk about all the VR wave that's coming.
It's Valve VIVE, however the fuck you pronounce their thing.
Yeah, it's just everyone's doing it.
Viva.
But the interesting thing to me is that the Morpheus stuff, they say it's coming next year, 2016.
Yeah.
And it's crazy powerful with the frame rate it can do and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, the VR stuff is finally coming to a place where it's going to be like commercially available, where people like with the Oculus Rift, which is sort of like the first headset that has been in development. I feel like that thing has been in development for like 5 fucking years or something. There have been people talking about it forever, but there's not any, like, nobody's making any real games or anything because the hardware's not out on a consumer level anywhere. So I'm excited that finally those things are going to be out. Like, I've never used one. I just want them to be out so that, like, people can talk about them in the context of something that you can use it for, instead of it being like, this is a really cool tech demo. And it's like, okay, the next year, the Oculus Rift, this is a really cool tech demo. Okay, next year, Oculus Rift, this is really cool. It's like, make a fucking game!
Yeah.
Like, I want to know, like, what you can do with it. That's just, not just looking at cool tech demos. So.
And, that's still my question about VR. Is there going to be games for it? Well, we'll see.
Yeah, like, how is that stuff going to work on a consumer level? I really want to know.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so that's interesting.
I wonder if like Microsoft is going to make their own VR headset.
Well, they've got their thing with Windows 10, the HoloLens.
Yeah, but that's like
it's not exactly the same.
Yeah,
that's where their eggs are right now for that kind of thing. Uncharted 4 was delayed. That was interesting.
Yeah, it was pushed back to spring of 2016, so it's not a huge delay. But yeah,
no, but it is. Did Sony just look at the November from Hell last year and say, this is really our big exclusive this year. We can't have that kind of embarrassment.
Yeah,
and they just allowed, because I assume Neil Druckmann and his team, they had known this for a while. I would assume.
Yeah,
and it's just Sony just finally said, yeah, we don't want to have that PR nightmare.
Yeah, so it's
let them finish it.
Better to have games be pushed back than to have like an Assassin's Creed Unity or Drive Club style debacle where it comes out and like the frame rate's broken and people hate it and like the online doesn't work and all that stuff.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think we'll talk about this a little more later with one game I want to talk about, but that pushback though does. Uncharted 4 felt like one of those games that would announce the coming of this new generation to me.
Yeah.
As in pushback again, this has been one of the slowest starts to a gaming generation ever. It's just been molasses.
Yeah, it's very spare.
They did not. Sparse. They should have held these releases back. They did not have the game library ready to push to get these consoles out the door. Because look, the best games I'm playing on Xbox One or on PS4, either one, are games that are already out or you can get easily in other places.
Yeah, like all the definitive editions.
Yeah. So man, it's amazing to me that these consoles have sold as spectacularly as they have, with that kind of, honestly, debacle going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
That lack of organization is a weird phenomenon to me, but yeah. Oh well.
I mean, Bloodborne is coming out in like a week or 2 weeks, so I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
Then Arkham Knight comes out this summer.
I think Arkham Knight will be the first big one. And, we also had the Order 1886 come out a couple weeks ago, which was a disaster.
Yeah.
That just sounded... When I say video games shouldn't try to be movies, that's why. It's a stupid thing.
Like, although on the other hand, it seems like the main problem with that game is that they also wrote a really shitty story for it as well.
Yeah, but
It's like that style. I still think could work if you just bother to have some good writing.
Yeah, I really don't like that kind of style of game, but that's a discussion for another day.
Yeah,
and actually an interesting one to have at some point. But anyway, so the gaming news that really matters in the last month, in the last year, in the last decade, this millennium so far, the Persona 5...
Since video games were invented. Really.
And conceived. Really, media was conceived.
Yes. Since the dawn of mankind.
The Persona 5 gameplay trailer came out a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
And man... So there was a brief trailer when they announced the game, which was the You Are Slave.
Yes.
Want Emancipation?
Yeah.
Which they sadly fixed in the English language trailer, which you are a slave. I was sad about that.
Yeah.
You are slave. Damn it. They said it that way for a reason.
Exactly.
Which is that English is confusing.
It's fucking artistic license, motherfucker. You are slave.
You are slave. So we had that, but that obviously no gameplay. And I think Persona 5 has been pretty much a mystery since then. And I think the big question for us is it going to look like the 3-4 model?
Yeah, exactly.
Is it going to be totally different? Is it going to be recognizable? What is Persona 5? And this wasn't just a gameplay trailer. This was a pretty substantial gameplay trailer.
Yeah, it's like 3 minutes long.
It's like 3 minutes, shows you menus, shows you action, gives you a hint of what the combat system is going to look like at the cutscenes. And, Sean, what'd you think?
It's a fucking awesome fucking trailer, dude. Like, that is how you make a fucking video game trailer, because it is overflowing with style. The song is great. All the art direction is great. Just like the cuts and edits and the timing of the trailer, it's just so much fun to watch. It's just because I've seen it probably like over a dozen times at this point. Yeah. It's just like, it's a thing that's like you just watch it for 3 minutes and it's a fun experience to watch. But then also it has a lot of little hints at like information in it that for someone who's a fan of the Persona franchise, you look at it, it's like, okay, cool. Like you can kind of look at, the brief shots of the combat and stuff and like the menus and him walking around and the stuff actually going on in the gameplay, and you can get some insight into the game, So it's like it's a nice element of showing you actual gameplay, then also with like mixed with some of the cinematic elements of the game. It's like, yeah, it's a really good trailer.
Yeah, absolutely, it is. It's so good that I have not watched it a dozen times, but I've watched it maybe half a dozen, and I feel like every time it's like, okay, I don't want to watch anymore because it just makes me sad that I don't have this game in front of me, or it makes me conversely want to go play Persona 3 or 4 again, which is dangerous.
Yeah,
I don't have time for that right now.
Yeah.
That would be really... I think these papers would not get graded.
No.
Students would be like, what's my grade? It's like, I don't know, I'm playing Persona.
It's like, you just like have that essay that's talking about Rashomon as a Christian allegory. You're like, yep, okay, A+. Let me get back to my game.
I have to study for class in Persona.
Yeah.
But here's what makes the Persona 5 trailer so immensely exciting to me is that it looks recognizably like a Persona game. Like you could not tell me what it is, take the names off, and I'd say that's a Persona game.
Yeah.
However, it looks totally new at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's all fully 3D. It's big explorable environments, or not explorable, but like you move through it environments. Yeah. So it's a huge expansion of the graphical style and probably the gameplay style of the series. But I can see how they would fit in something like Social Links if they wanted to do it, and maybe even build on it. And I can see how the dungeons have been reimagined. There seems to be some kind of cover system or a movement system, which could be a great way to make those more engaging. Yeah. Which the dungeons in Persona 3 and 4 are great, but there's always room for improvement.
Yeah, but they're very sort of basic.
Yeah. So it really looks like they are taking advantage of the power of the PS3, basically. I mean, it's going to come out on PS4. This was developed for the 3.
Yeah.
Which, and they've always been a couple of years behind the times on that, which is fine, because these are systems that still have plenty to offer.
Yeah, the Persona games are not there to be technical powerhouses.
No. But they are definitely taking advantage of, we can make something bigger this time.
Yeah.
And maybe most excitingly, stylistically, while it is in that general Persona voice, it's not the Persona 3 style, it's not the Persona 4 style, it is something different. It looks substantially more adult. And it's hard to say darker because Persona 3 is literally about death.
Yes.
But I do think it looks like it's a different set of themes and a different voice.
Yeah, it's very clearly... Like, it's in the Persona 3 and Persona 4 style in the sense that, like, when you compare those games to Persona 1 or the Persona 2s. Like, they're very distinct because they had different teams working on them. So it's like, it's clear that the creative people behind Persona 3 and 4 as opposed to the earlier ones. But, like, it definitely has that same sort of gap in terms of tone and theme and style that Persona 3 and Persona 4 have. It's like, the characters in Persona 3 are very different than the ones in 4. And what they're doing, the issues they're dealing with, are very different than what Persona 4 is doing. And with Persona 5, it's very clear that they're, those ideas about emancipation and your sort of like the shackles of society, especially as you growing up, and sort of like this need to forge your own path, to sort of define your own values and try to be yourself in this world that, like, the society that tries to constrain you in so many ways, seems like it is tying into this thing that they're doing where you see the main character is sort of like, seems to have like this sort of like phantom master thief thing going on. It's like, that seems really interesting to me because it seems like they're almost going for like an anti-hero kind of vibe for your main characters this time around.
Yeah, absolutely. And the animation in the cutscenes looks so nice because, I like the Persona 4 animated cutscenes a lot. They're really good, but, they don't really compare to just the pure style of Persona 3.
Yeah.
And it looks like they've put that same level of focus in Persona 5.
I mean, you have that stinger at the end of the trailer where the main dude it looks like that's his, like, Persona awakening scene because, like, his eyes glow yellow and shit. It's like, it's fucking hardcore, man. Like, he turns into the devil or something at the end of that trailer. Like, it's fucking intense, and it's very different than, like, those equivalent scenes from Persona 3 and Persona 4.
Absolutely. And, you and I have spent a lot of time talking about this before the Persona 5 trailer and after that, Persona 3 and moreover, Persona 4 have been so immensely popular at home and abroad that, that's become this whole, like, subgenre of games as the Persona spinoff.
Yeah.
But specifically the 3 and 4 spinoff, and I think, and really more in the 4 voice always.
Yeah, definitely.
Really no Persona 3 spinoffs to speak of. Mm-hmm. Except for Episode Yourself, or Episode I, guess.
Yeah.
Which, Episode Yourself is what they called. Yeah,
anyway. The main story for Persona 3.
Which I still love. Any chance to just say those words.
Yeah.
It's great. But anyway, so was Persona 5 possibly going to be bound by that? Were they going to make something more like Persona 3 or 4? And no, they are letting that exist as its own kind of subgenre, and they are going full steam ahead. Mm-hmm. And I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, like there's you don't see any Persona 4 characters in it. Like, it's, it's taking place in Tokyo, so it's like a big city setting, so the setting is also very different from Persona 4. Yeah, and it's very clearly its own thing. Like, the only returning character that you see is Igor in, like, one of the cutscenes.
Oh, right, yeah.
And, like, of course you have to have Igor in there, but then they also have new Velvet Room attendants that look like they're, like, two twins or something.
Yeah.
That they look pretty cool, too. Also, it looks like, you only get brief glimpses of it, it looks like the Velvet Room is, like, in a giant fucking cage or something now.
Yeah,
That's
does.
fucking cool.
Man, these guys can do no wrong.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing.
Because there's just... Honestly, my favorite part of the trailer, and this is the weirdest thing to say, is when you see the menus.
Yes.
The menus of the game look so fucking cool because they're animated in this way that, like, when you go down into sub-menus, like, the character moves and, like, the menu moves around. It's just, like... It looks so fucking cool. It's like... And it's something I don't think I've ever seen any other game do, this really dynamic menu system that's so alive like that.
Yeah.
It's like, that's just fucking awesome looking. It's such a weird detail to point out, but it's like, it has so much flavor to it.
Here's what you said to me the day the trailer came out, and I totally agree. I love what you said here, was that those menus alone have more style than any game out right now has in its whole being.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with that. I think I'm honestly pretty jaded on modern gaming and the current gen we're in right now. I think it's people aren't taking interesting risks, especially going back and playing some older games as I have in these last couple months has clarified for me that there's I think a lot of repetition and kind of dullness in the industry right now.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so exciting to see something like Persona 5 where it's this team of really people with very clear voices and clear artistic intents going the distance.
Yeah, exactly. It feels like it is an art, like an attempt at creative art above it trying to be a commercial product. You know? Yeah.
And, when you feel that in gaming, I think that can be more powerful than anything. That's
Yeah.
why something like Metroid Prime, I was playing Metroid Prime and I got into it because it's like, oh, nobody takes risks like this anymore. Nobody designs games this creatively anymore. Or not nobody, but very...
but nobody with a budget.
Nobody with a budget, not on a main console, like console seller kind of thing. No, you don't get that anymore. Or rarely. But, so, yeah. The basic lesson here is we are very excited for Persona 5. And America, I think at this point, it's not getting it until 2016. I think we can probably guess.
Yeah. But I don't think it'll probably take long for it to be localized because Persona 4, especially after the Golden release, became so popular over here.
Yeah.
It's like, I hope that with like Persona 5, because it's like the Persona games have always been critically beloved and have had a very rabid audience and fan base over here, but it's like each successive iteration and re-release has like the fan base has like grown and grown. Now it's like kind of popping with like the most of like the gaming media is very into the Persona thing now. That I hope Persona 5 is like the game that makes the Persona franchise explode over here the way it hasn't quite yet.
I think it's going to cross over. I think it's going to cross over big time because, and how I feel like I know that is not just because of the popularity of Persona 4 and whatnot, but Catherine, when that came out a couple years ago, that did have some crossover. It didn't become huge, but I saw that being talked about in places that you would never hear about Persona 3 or 4 at the time those came out.
Yeah.
And I should also say, the Persona 5 trailer kind of confirms a theory I had that Catherine, I think, it was in part a tech demo for things they were going to do in Persona 5. Because the whole, not the puzzle side, which is a different kind of thing, but the social side.
Yeah, the open world kind of.
Persona 5 really looks like that. And I like that because Catherine is a game with tremendous style. Catherine is one of my favorite games of that last generation. It's so good.
And I also really love like just like little visual details in the trailer, the Japanese sound effects that pop up as like text in the world just looks so cool.
Everything, like you say about like the editing and the rhythms of it, it's that, but it's also just every individual image you see has an energy to it that is infectious.
Yeah, like, God, like, there's just so much shit. Like, the in-shot of when the music is still playing before the Persona Awakening scene, where you have the three characters that were introduced and then, like, the mascot-looking character, and they're, like, ice skating, basically, on this, like, highway in that very stylized, anime intro style. There's just this flow to the animation and this confidence in the style that is, like, this sort of, like, punk aesthetic that they're going for. They just nail it so perfectly. It just makes me so excited to play the game because games don't tackle themes in the way that the Persona franchise does almost at all. Like, they go about it in such a sort of artistic, literary fashion where they really think about what are the themes that we're trying to portray. Like, what is the story we want to tell? How does that relate to the characters that we want to make? And how do all those pieces fit together? And they are just masters at doing that. Persona 3 and Persona 4 prove that.
Absolutely. I think they start with a theme and everything extends from there, and you can just feel it in the being of those games. Yeah. It really is. I am so fascinated at this moment in certain just elements of what I guess I would call a game theory and stuff like that. Yeah. And Persona is one of the epicenters of that for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me as well. Like, ever since I played Persona 4 and then Persona 3, the critical aspect of thinking about video games is like blossomed into this is a whole way to make video games and tell stories in video games that most people aren't even attempting, you know?
Yeah. And not that these games are similar at all, but that was what attracted me so much to the Metroid series when I was playing that is I understand totally why people don't make Metroid style games because it has to be the hardest thing in the world. Mm-hmm. But it is a kind of narrative and sensual experience that it's just, to me, it's like, this is gaming used in a way I've never seen it.
Yeah, and it's something that, like, you cannot make that experiment, that experience and translate it into something else. Like, you can only do that through the video game.
Yeah, so, and I love that video games are not homogenized right now in the way movies are, because if you look at, like, movies across history, and whether you're looking at art house cinema, as we call it, or commercial cinema, or even avant-garde to a certain degree, a movie looks like a movie. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, it moves in a certain way, it feels a certain way. It's very rare I watch a movie and I feel like that's unlike anything I've ever seen, or this is a different paradigm than this. With video games, I feel like you can have, as we're saying here, like the Persona model, which is so fascinating and groundbreaking, the Metroid model I'm talking about and I love, and then all these other ones, you know. And all of them can give you something 100% different.
Yeah.
That's fascinating to me. Mm-hmm. That shows the potential of this medium.
Yeah, and it's one of the things that makes it really frustrating when, like, it's obviously, like, the big budget side of it for the industry is in these doldrums right now, where they're trying to figure out, I think, how to handle sort of the expanding budgets for these games and for the new consoles and everything. Yeah.
So speaking of which,
okay,
let's talk about some new games here for a little bit.
All right.
So first up, the most recent, well, a couple weeks ago, I had been waiting. I had not bought a $60 game in a while.
Yes.
So I bought for the Xbox One when it came out Dragon Ball Xenoverse.
And I'm going to stop you right there, Jonathan.
Yes.
Because I have not told you this. I also bought Dragon Ball Xenoverse for the PS4.
We're really bad at coordinating.
Yes.
Fuck. Eek. Well, okay, so we both played it. That's good.
Yes.
Well, we can have a discussion.
Yes.
How much have you played?
I've beaten it. I've beaten the story.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't, maxed out my character or anything like that.
Man, I had to stop playing it after about a week because the server issues were so heavy. I could not...
I mean, I've just, been playing it offline.
Yeah, and I probably should try that, but
there's no reason, I just don't see any reason to try to play with other people, unless you have friends that you want to play with specifically.
There's not a lot, but from what I know, I would have to go, just turn the internet off on the console off and then come back in. And I actually can't do that with my Xbox One because the way I have it set up so I can share games with my brother's Xbox One is I have to be online to play my games that are digital. So I just can't.
Right, I just, pulled out the Ethernet cable told it to start. It's really dumb that you can't just start into offline mode because there is an offline mode that it will go to if it doesn't connect the connection.
They should that's the first thing they should patch in. But, and I think with the server issues with Xenoverse, what it was is this game was vastly more popular than anyone was expecting.
Yeah, it sold way better.
It's a huge hit for a Dragon Ball game, and I think they just weren't prepared. And I get that. I wish they would fix it, but,
I'm just happy that you can play it offline. It's dumb that you can't just select that from the menu.
Yeah.
But you can play the game without having to connect to the servers.
So anyway, but Xenoverse, and I think the popularity speaks to something that I kind of want to kick the discussion off with, which is that, when was the last time you bought a Dragon Ball game?
Probably Budokai.
The first one?
Yeah, I've played a couple of the Budokai Tenkaichi games, but I never bought them.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay,
I have not bought or played, I think at all other than maybe a demo, any Dragon Ball Z game on the 360 generation of games. I skipped all of them because they all seemed terrible to me.
Yeah, I got one during that generation and it was okay. I just kind of wanted something to play, but I got it used 2 years later. Mm-hmm. So that's the thing I was going to say. I don't think I've ever paid full price day one for a Dragon Ball game. I don't think I've ever done that.
I've never done that.
But I did back in the day. I played Budokai 1, 2, 3 on the GameCube, and I played Budokai Tenkaichi 2 on the Wii, and that game was ruined by Wii controls. So I heard that and 3 were good on the PS2, but the Wii version.
Yeah, I played Budokai Tenkaichi 2 on the PS2 at a friend's house. Okay, and I like that. I like that, and this is kind of more in that vein. I like that style more than the Budokai because it feels more like Dragon Ball to me.
I get that. I thought I liked how and if you're just so you know, the Budokai line, which was the first revival line of Dragon Ball games in that second wave in Japan, and then they came over here. That was the side view ones.
Yeah,
and then,
it's more like a traditional fighting game in a lot of ways.
And then the Budokai Tenkaichi games were 3D, and you got to move around that space.
Yeah,
I thought the Budokai ones, I liked the controls of those better, but I agree, I liked the immersion of that 3D style. And I think in some ways Xenoverse is a nice middle point between those, but we'll talk about that later. But anyway, so yeah, I liked Dragon Ball games back in the day when I had.
I liked Budokai 1.
Yeah, when I had more time to play that kind of game. It was around the time I was becoming a Dragon Ball fan. But yeah, so I like a good Dragon Ball game every now and then. We just have not had a good Dragon Ball game in
a very, very long time.
In a very
fucking long time.
But Xenoverse, from everything I had seen before it came out and heard, it had a lot of the innovations, for lack of a better term, I kind of wanted in a Dragon Ball game. If you don't know, it's based on a character creation mode, so you create your own Time Patroller, and the whole story is that Time Patrol Trunks, a lot of this actually they're pulling from Dragon Ball Online, the Korean MMO, that had a lot of cool stuff written by series author Akira Toriyama, but never came out even in Japan. Yeah. It's a Korean MMO. So they brought a lot of that stuff into Xenoverse, which is cool. And there's these guys who are going through time, and they're messing shit up, and you're a Time Patroller, and Trunks wishes for the dragon to bring him the perfect Time Patroller.
Which, you think you could have just asked him to, bring you in at, level 50 or something. If you're bothering to ask, the Eternal Dragon, the Granter of Wishes, Like, don't bring me in and I'm level 1 and I can't even like use a Kamehameha, asshole. Like, come on, like power me up a little bit.
Yeah. But anyway, and then you have to go through it's called Dragon Ball Xenoverse, but it probably should just put Z on there because it's the Z story.
It's Dragon Ball Z.
No verse. Okay, yeah.
Jonathan.
Except spelled with an X.
Yeah. I mean, an XE.
Okay. So anyway, but yeah, it starts with Raditz. Goes Raditz to Boo, and then does it do anything after that?
You get some Battle of Gods. So you like fight
awesome.
Beerus, and that's actually probably the best part of the story of the game.
I love Battle of Gods.
There's a lot of material with those characters. It's like they're kind of able to do more with Beerus and Whis than the like normal Dragon Ball characters,
great.
obviously, because they're new.
Have you seen Battle of Gods yet?
Yeah. It's good.
It's so good.
Yeah,
I love
it's the best Dragon Ball movie just because the other
ones, easily.
Yeah, are awful.
Well, there's some good Dragon Ball movies.
Yeah, but like as movies, they're really disappointing. Like,
No, Battle of Gods is a blast, and I love Beerus and Whis specifically.
Yeah, they're really good characters.
And I'd heard they were in the game. I just didn't know how they integrated them. But that's great. In any case, so Xenoverse, that's that. But you go Raditz to Boo in a different way than you did in older Dragon Ball games, which is they just recreated the story, which was kind of boring.
Yes, especially when they did that for every single fucking Dragon Ball game.
But this one does these obviously alternate timeline kind of things. So that's kind of interesting. And then it's got this like shared world aspect in the main like hub world, which is kind of interesting. And you've got side quests you can go on.
Parallel quests.
Yeah. So let's see. I guess I'll throw it to you first. Overall, you've played more of Xenoverse than I have. Yeah. I've played through all the Ginyu stuff.
Okay, so you're still relatively early.
And I'll share my thoughts. Enough to form an opinion, I think.
Yeah.
And I've played a lot of side stuff too. But you've played through the campaign. What did you think?
I really like it. Like, I'm a huge fan of Dragon Ball. So, like, that's obviously like you have to say first. If you're not into Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. Like this, you could probably still enjoy the game, especially if you like are playing with someone else who's a big fan of the franchise. But if you don't know anything about it, like this isn't an introduction point or anything like that. But to me, the game definitely has flaws, and it has a lot of flaws. And there's like the fighting,
like all the typos.
Sure,
have you seen all those?
Yeah,
I just think it's funny.
But yeah, and they have Japanese voices, and I use Japanese voices for most of it, but I just put the English dub on for some just to hear it. The English dub is really bad in a way that's kind of disappointing of like...
Well, did you hear...
You guys are got really good at this.
Yeah. But all the rumors have been that the localization team had like 2 weeks on this. They got it last minute.
It doesn't surprise me. That it just feels like the localization feels really unpolished. But
that is disappointing because I'm not a fan of the dub. Not that I think it's bad anymore. I actually think the Battle of Gods dub was super impressive to me. Mm-hmm. They're not my preferred voices, but I respect the hell out of what they do. Yeah. And that's sad.
And they're like the guys behind it are really passionate about it. Like the guy, especially Christopher Sabat, who's like Vegeta and Piccolo, and Sean Shamel, who's Goku. Like I've watched a bunch of interviews. It's like they really care about the franchise.
No, they are there to guard it and do it right. And that's sad too, because in Battle of Gods, all the casting they did for like Beerus and Whis was so good and stuff. Yeah. So anyway. But
yeah, so there are definitely problems with the game. Like some of the fighting stuff is clunky. It's not perfect. So it's not like a game that I would be like, hey, even if you like playing video games, you have to play this. But it is the Dragon Ball game that I have always wanted to play.
Absolutely.
Because it's like, it's fun to play like the Budokai stuff and the Tenkaichi stuff that was like, yeah, you get to play as Goku and go through the events of Dragon Ball. And that's fun in its own way. But what you always really wanted was, I want to make my own Dragon Ball dude. And I want to be able to customize him. And I want to be able to I want him to be able to shoot a Kamehameha and do like a Final Flash. Like I want him to put like all my custom moves and stuff. And then I want also a different story. Like I want new Dragon Ball content. That was one of the cool things about the Battle of Gods movie is like, you get new Dragon Ball content that's canonical. Like it feels like it exists within the universe. It's not just random side shit. It's like I want new stories in this universe with these characters. And Xenoverse is able to, it's obviously very fan servicey, but it's able to like kind of have its cake and eat its too. That it's able to tell the story of the Dragon Ball stuff. It's able to like, you get to fight Frieza, and you get to fight Cell, you get to fight Ginyu. But it's able to put a unique spin on it that in like all those different scenarios of all the big like famous battles of Dragon Ball Z, you get to see like the evil, like the new villains, have fucked it up. Like they have manipulated the situation in such a way that's like, oh, Raditz did not get killed. He didn't get hit by the special beam cannon. So now you have to go in and fix that situation.
And I think some of those situations are so creative and fun.
If you're in the Ginyu stuff, the Ginyu stuff is probably my favorite twist.
My favorite part in the whole thing. So the Ginyu twist is, if you know in the real story of Dragon Ball, Captain Ginyu has this power to change bodies.
Yeah, he switches bodies with people.
And he switches bodies with Goku for a substantial part of the story.
Yeah.
And here, he switches bodies with your created character, so you have to fight yourself. And now I realize that must have been really hard for Goku.
Yeah.
It's super confusing.
It's a great fucking moment, because it is just in the middle of a mission, you get body swapped with Ginyu. So now you're playing as Ginyu with Captain Ginyu's moves, and now you're fighting against your character, and then Captain Ginyu's voice is coming out of your character, and your character's portrait is now appearing in dialogue boxes like other characters, and it really fucks with your head.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably the most creative sort of time swap thing they do, because obviously that has a really great opportunity for it. But there are a lot of other really fun scenarios that they come up with that's like, here's a twist on what actually happened. Like the Cell section has a pretty good one. There's this is what actually happened, and then this is how these characters mess it up, and now you have to figure out a way to put it right.
Yeah, I love that stuff, and I love how the Dragon Ball characters react to these things.
Yeah,
especially Goku, because of course Goku would just roll with it.
He'd and especially because it's interesting because they don't do a whole lot with it, but because your character keeps on popping up, and so it's like Goku clearly kind of basically remembers you each time, and so it's like you kind of build a weird relationship with Goku in these brief 5-minute moments where you pop into his life, kick Vegeta in the face, and then you're gone all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And then everyone's just like, where the fuck, who the fuck is this guy? How does he keep on popping out of nowhere and beating everyone up?
Yeah. I like Xenoverse.
Yeah.
I think there are some things maybe this is the best way I could put it. I would be really interested in the Xenoverse sequel, where they could iron some things out, because I think this game is a phenomenal foundation for a great Dragon Ball game. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it gets all the way there. I think the combat is messy. I think it's mostly fun, but I think there's some camera wonkiness and some
there's definitely, especially if you get into environments, there's one... Yeah. Have you done the Ginyu mission where you're in the Frieza ship?
That one is
That's
broken.
the one. Luckily, that's the only area like that in the game.
Oh, good.
But when you're ever in an area that's sort of confined, if you're getting hit up against a mountain or something, the camera goes kind of crazy and zooms in and you can't see anything.
Yeah, so I think the fighting is fun, but it also has a lot of restrictions right now. And, I'm comparing it actually to... I'm kind of wrong when I say I haven't bought a Dragon Ball game at full price. I did last year and I imported this from Japan, J-Star's Victory Versus, which is getting a Western release this year, which is...
cool.
I don't know how they did that license-wise.
Yeah, because that's
amazing. But that's a really fun game, and the fighting in that is fantastic. It is exactly what I would want out of any of those franchises, but Dragon Ball especially, because that's what I know best in terms of fighting games. And this is not nearly as good as that. It's not as tight or as focused. And obviously with that one, they only had to do 3 Dragon Ball characters right. There's more here. But I would like something a little tighter like that. However, it is fun on the fighting level. And then the create a character mode, that's great. I love being able to create my character. Yeah. It's not super deep in terms of what you can create, but it's exactly what it should be for Dragon Ball. But
then, because you the physical, body appearance of your character is not that deep, but there's a huge, ridiculous number of accessories and clothing items you can put on your character.
Absolutely.
And then, every fucking move you could possibly think of in Dragon Ball Z... You can a lot of them are really hard to get, but you can get them on your guy.
Right, absolutely. So there's that. I think the story is really creative and well presented, and that's great. Yeah. I love seeing that creativity. I like the kind of weird, the time hub world. I think that's just a fun thing to have in a Dragon Ball game.
Toki City.
Toki City. I love all the side quests. And then I think they had a best of both worlds kind of approach where you get your character created and all that. However, you still unlock the characters from the series and can fight with them just in normal arena matches. And that's great. So it's got that, but then it's got all the characters I could want.
Yeah.
And I know even in DLC they're going to get Jocko the Galactic Patrolman in a couple months. I'm so excited for that because I love that manga. And there's going to be some more good characters coming from that. So it's, as you say, it's got everything basically I could want out of a Dragon Ball game, except I wish it played a little better.
Yeah. I mean, I think when you get a little bit further into it from where you are, it's really clunky in a lot of ways, but when you learn the systems, eventually, like, I was able to get to a point, especially once I got past a really ridiculous difficulty spike in the Cell Saga, I was able to sort of come to terms with a lot of the systems of the game that made me feel like now when I play it, like, I feel like I'm really in control of my character, and I'm not having the issues of, like, missing a lot of the time that, like, you know, you would, like, be, like, doing a melee combo, and whenever you're, like, melee attacking, your character just kind of goes in a straight line, even if you're locked on, and will not, like, turn around to hit your opponent. Like, I found, like, I've got a lot better at dodging and blocking and stuff like that in a way that makes the fighting system rewarding. This, again, it's not the greatest fighting system in the world, but it is a very good representation of Dragon Ball Z fights as a video game mechanic. And so, even when it's clunky, you still get amazing moments where I turn, like, Super Saiyan, like, fly at the guy who's, like, halfway across the world, punch him, do a little combo, like, kick him away, and then use my Final Flash ultimate finisher and shoot this giant fucking energy blast at him and do, like, a ridiculous, like, 30-hit combo, you know?
Yeah, no, and that's what I was going to say is that, well, I don't think the fighting system is bad. That's not what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
But when it's good, it's really good. So those moments, as you say, that's what I feel too. When you rush over at someone and you just punch them through halfway across the map,
yeah,
I feel like I'm in Dragon Ball more than in any other game. So while I actually do think there are other Dragon Ball games I've played that had slightly tighter and better fighting mechanics than this, there aren't any that the overall atmosphere feels better on. Mm-hmm. And I would take the atmosphere over the sheer mechanics, because I'm not playing a Dragon Ball game to play a great game.
Exactly.
I mean, let's be honest.
You're doing it for, like, the fan experience, for being able to, like, live out this Dragon Ball fantasy in a video game.
Yeah.
And for that, Xenoverse is easily the best Dragon Ball game I've ever played.
No, totally, easily. There's not... Yeah, there's not really a contest on that, you know. And there are some other really good Dragon Ball games, but this one I love that experience of it. So, what kind of character did you create?
I made a Saiyan.
Saiyan?
Because,
okay.
Of course, because you get... And the way they handle Super Saiyan in this game, because you haven't really gotten there yet.
Well, and I'm not a Saiyan, so...
Yeah. It's really weird. Like, it's interesting. I prefer the Tenkaichi model where, like, the... like, different forms of characters are, like, different characters on the select screen. Just because I feel that's more emblematic of what Dragon Ball fights are. It's like, Goku's basically Super Saiyan for the whole fight, you know? He's not, like, switching between his different forms. So they do the Budokai model where it's an ultimate finisher where you turn Super Saiyan in the match. But how they handle it is that, like, you have to have at least 3 key bars to be able to trigger it. And then once you trigger it, it slowly drains your ki. But while you're Super Saiyan, all of your attacks are more powerful, and you can basically use any of your moves without it costing any ki. So the end result of that is that the number one strategy in the game is to go Super Saiyan and then just use your ultimate finisher over and over and over and over again. And so I mentored under Vegeta really early in the game, because if you can mentor under other like more famous Dragon Ball characters and then do missions for them that gives you their moves. And then also whoever you're mentoring has, like, dialogue at the end of every mission. So if you're mentoring under Vegeta, even if you get a fucking, like, Z rank, which is the best rank, he's still just yelling shit at you, and for me in Japanese. It's like, Vegeta, you are so fucking hard to please, dude. I literally beat this mission in 30 seconds without getting hurt, and you're still mad at me.
Yeah.
But I unlocked Final Flash, so in every single fight, whenever I was getting beaten, I would fly away, charge my key bar to its max, turn Super Saiyan 2, fly back out, and just go, Final Flash! Final Flash! Final Flash! And then the guy would just be like, he would be melted by the end of the fight.
Nice.
Yeah.
Alright, well, I did not create a Saiyan just because I felt like I'll have plenty of chances to play as a Saiyan in this game with Goku and stuff, so I decided to make a Namekian. Because I like how Namekians look and everything. And I thought a pretty badass looking dude. I liked how much you can control the color and stuff too. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, you can make Namekians weirdly weird looking.
Yeah, I did not. He's still green, but he's a darker green.
Yeah, but you can make them like pink and shit.
But I thought I like how my guy looks and everything and plays and sounds. So I've had fun with that. The Namekians are a little underpowered, but they have some interesting, like, it makes up for it in speed and agility and some of those things. So that's nice. Yeah. And I'm excited. Like, I really also was tempted to do a Frieza soldier, and I can't wait to go back and do that.
I was wavering between making a Saiyan or making a Frieza character.
And I have to say, I love that you unlock a pool I think that is so fucking funny.
There's actually like 2 or 3 Frieza henchmen that you can unlock in the game.
Because Apul is like one of the great just throwaway Dragon Ball characters in that he means nothing, but he's kind of funny.
Yeah.
And I love that he's a playable character now.
Yeah. I should say for like, people who are huge fans of Dragon Ball listening to this and like are maybe interested in getting into the game, it is important to note that like it has all the major characters that you want from Dragon Ball Z, but right now it doesn't really have any GT stuff. So if you wanted GT stuff,
that's coming in the first DLC. I know
you can, and I did unlock Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta because you can get that through getting the Dragon Balls, which is one complaint I have about the game is that when you're playing the side missions called parallel quests, that are basically little bite-sized arena things, arena fights. Like, that's how you unlock a lot of the content of the game. If you want to get, like, specific moves or clothes or Dragon Balls, that's like, there's a special way to do it. That stuff is very frustrating in almost a Destiny kind of way in terms of it's how you get it to drop is kind of random. So it's basically you have, like, loot drops in the game almost. And grinding those missions, if you're trying to get something specific, can be a little bit annoying. But it's also like there's nothing in there that you need to get for your character, so it's kind of like a hell that you have to thrust on yourself if you really want to get like a Hercule wig, which I got a Hercule wig. I didn't put it on, but I can make my guy have Hercule hair if I want, or Mr. Satan hair, I guess I should say. And so
Mr. Satan being my favorite character in the entire Dragon Ball franchise, I like this news.
Yeah, you can get a lot of different character wigs.
Do they have Mr. Satan as a playable character?
Yes.
I love it when they do that because it's so funny.
Yeah,
he's always so funny.
I will say just for like when I said earlier, there's a fun twist in the Cell Saga. This is fun. The fun twist in the Cell Saga revolves around Mr. Satan.
All right, we got to get this podcast done so I can try to play Xenoverse again. Yeah, that he's my favorite. Does he still have the jetpack to fly?
I didn't notice if he can fly. I don't remember if he had a jetpack on or not.
Okay, because that's how they used to do it in the old games, and I thought it was so funny, because that's totally what he would do.
Yeah, he would have a jetpack.
That's totally what he would do.
But the other thing I was going to say for like Dragon Ball fans is that since this is a new game, compared to some of like the other Dragon Ball entries, it is a little light on characters. That it doesn't have any of the movie characters to unlock. I think maybe you can unlock Broly as like a super secret way, but like he's not.
Beerus and Whis are in it, right?
Yeah, but like I count them all like because they're part of like the Dragon Ball canon. As far as
that's pretty true because those are directly created by Toriyama. And everything.
So like obviously they're in the game, but every other Dragon Ball game at this point, since they had to mine the like everything in Dragon Ball fiction, you would just be able to play as like the weird dude with like laser hands from the Cooler movie, like there'd be all the like those are not in the game, but all the major characters that you want are in there,
Is Videl in there?
Yes.
Oh, good.
In fact, right now I'm mentoring under Gohan and Videl, who they mentor you as a pair.
This
and that's
is
actually
so
really great because the dialogue for them is actually really well written because I really like their relationship in the show, but it's never really explored. So it's really nice that they're like a pair.
That's one of my favorite things in movies 12 and 13.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of stuff with them as the Saiyaman and Saiyawoman.
Yeah.
And so they have that in here that I'm so excited. Yes. All the great stuff I haven't gotten to yet. I'm so excited.
Like there's definitely a lot of really fun stuff in the late game. That I feel like the late game is probably my favorite part of all of it.
Yeah.
And then another one of like just one of the stupid but great details they put in is that when you're in Toki Toki City, this sort of the hub world,
which I love that name.
Yeah, you can bring up this menu that's basically like you can do emotes, and so you can do like all the Ginyu poses are in there.
Really?
Yeah, if you go through it, like you should go through it. The best one is they have the full Great Saiyaman like thing he does, where he runs in place, and then it ends with like him doing like this V thing. Like that whole routine is in there that you can do as an emote. You can do the fusion dance. Like, there's all these... the fan service in this game is fucking off the charts. It's incredible.
It really feels like this one was made with so much more love and care than any game for a long time. And, it's made by Dimps, who did the Budokai games back in the day.
Yeah.
And I think those games had a similar level of, like, we really want to make this feel like you're playing the show.
And it reflects the source material really well in a way that it's just, if you're a big fan of the source material, like, you owe it to yourself to play the game, because it's so much fun.
Not that Dragon Ball ever went away, really, but it's having a renaissance right now.
Yeah, because they're making the new movie, too.
Which, have you seen the trailer?
Yeah.
It looks so good. It's Revival of F is the new one.
Yeah,
on
Frieza's coming back.
Looks so good. And this one, even more direct involvement by Toriyama than Battle of Gods, which was very direct, and you can tell it looks so good.
Yeah.
I cannot wait for that movie to be translated and come out at some
point. And then
point.
for them to make another video game so that you can have like the new version of
Frieza. Frieza is such a great villain, and I'm actually really glad they're going back to that well, because while I think he is the best Dragon Ball Z villain, he's in probably the worst arc of that series. Sure. In a lot of ways. Like the Namek arc.
The messiest arc, for
sure.
The
messiest arc.
Yeah.
Well, the Boo arc is the messiest in some ways, but it's also, the messiness is the point of that arc. So I like bringing Frieza back, and, he's just, that character doesn't get old.
It'll be nice to have Frieza be able to fight again, because at this point the power is so ridiculous, especially when you have like the Super Saiyan God stuff now. It's like Frieza just looks like so pathetic in hindsight. So and I should say in Xenoverse, playing a Super Saiyan God Goku is really fun. Like they have that, like and his moveset is really, really good.
Nice.
And you don't feel like you're completely cheating, because obviously he's like his own form, so you don't like. He doesn't have infinite ki, so you don't get to just do the ultimate attack spam thing with him. So when you're playing as him, you're actually forced to play the game at some point and not fall back on like just launching infinite Kamehamehas.
I love the Super Saiyan God design. I think it looks cool.
Yeah.
That's how you know it's Toriyama too, because he goes for like smaller and more, I think, intellectual in some ways and subtle designs
than Super Saiyan 4
Broly
GT
or something.
Yeah.
Which other people, I think, took a lot of the superficial aspects of his designs and didn't quite get what made them so catchy. So with Dragon Ball Xenoverse, like it's nice that like the pure heart of it.
Yeah, the pure heart. It's like everything that's in there is Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Z, with like a couple of, like I said, you get through like getting the Dragon Balls and making wishes and stuff, you can get some of the GT stuff, and I think you can get Broly, but it's like the core of it is just like, even, and then the new characters that they introduced, that like some of them I know are from that MMO, but it's like the Supreme Kai of Time and the Mira and Toa villains, and then there's another villain that gets introduced. It's sort of like the Mastermind. All of those characters are fun characters. Like they have some really fun, like they have some funny moments with them. That's nice because it helps it keep in the Dragon Ball tone.
You know what I hope they do if they do a sequel to this? Yes. I hope they dial it back and do Dragon Ball Nosy. And do some of that stuff, because that's always neglected in the games.
It's very underrepresented.
Frankly, I don't give a shit if GT shows up. GT is a bad show, and no one likes it, except crazy people who just want power levels to go up.
Yes.
But there's so many great characters that I would love to see how they would do the Xenoverse approach to the original Dragon Ball arcs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just in sort of the story aspect,
Where would Pilaf win this time?
It'd be great. Just see his eyes glow purple.
Yeah.
He just fucking kills Goku.
Yeah. All right, so that's Dragon Ball Xenoverse. Have you played any other new games besides Hotline Miami 2 you want to talk about?
Not really. Like I went back and cleared out some of my backlog in terms of I played like the infamous Second Son DLC First Light.
Was that any good?
Yeah, I liked it a lot.
Okay.
It's definitely worth playing. Like it's a nice bite-sized experience of Second Son. And the way that they expand on the neon powers is really cool. Like they give you some really awesome tools with Fletch.
Okay. Yeah. I've been catching up on my backlog too a little bit, in that I am still wading through Persona Q. I was actually hoping to have it done in time for the next podcast so I could talk about it. I don't think that game ends. I'm just kidding, but I'm 50 hours in and it feels like a long 50 hours at this point, and it's just the story stuff is as good as ever, but I'm ready to be done with those goddamn labyrinths. It's good, but there's too much of it. So, not that I would dissuade anyone from playing the game. It is worth playing.
Yeah.
But know that it'll probably take you about 6 months.
Yeah.
You're not
but, like, one of the nice things about a game like that is that even if it is too long, like, obviously, like you said, you're like 50 hours in. Like, even if you wanted to stop playing, you got your money's worth out of.
I did.
Yeah.
And you can come back to it pretty easily because, so it's really good, but I'm still working through that and trying to finish that. So that's that. But then, so the big thing we have to talk about now is Hotline Miami 2.
Yeah.
And I think this will be kind of a preliminary thing.
Yeah, because I'm not that far into it. Like,
and neither am I. And hopefully when we finish it, we will definitely revisit it when we finish it. But yeah, I've played 6 chapters or whatever they call them now.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure because I had like the last time I played it was like 2 days ago, so I don't remember where I was.
Yeah, I just played scene 6 today, and you've played I know about the same.
Yeah,
that's the first level of Act 2. Is what I played.
I think I'm a little bit behind where you are, but
okay.
Close.
But basically the same for both of us. So what are your initial impressions of Hotline Miami 2 Wrong Number? And I should preface this by saying both of us huge fans of Hotline Miami 1?
Hotline Miami 1 was super fucking fun.
One of my favorite games of the last few years, definitely.
So with Hotline Miami 2, like I think something like to know going into it is very similar to Hotline Miami 1 just in terms of the gameplay. Like the main differences so far that I've seen that are really remarkable is that like the way they're trying to tell the story is a lot more sort of like fleshed out than Hotline Miami 1, where like Hotline Miami 1 the story was so abstract and in the background and just like I keep on showing up to this pizza place and this weird pizza guy talks to me.
Here's the thing though so far. There's a lot more story. I don't think they've changed how they present it, and that's what makes it interesting. It is still abstract as hell. There are no explanations for how these things are connected.
But it's like, it feels more upfront about there being a story, whereas like with Hotline Miami 1, I felt like you had to be like halfway through it before you're like, okay, they're kind of telling a story. It wasn't just like, this is just like something that you do in between missions for like 2 seconds as you go to the pizza place. It's like in this, because you have sections where you don't even go in and kill people, you know, that like they're like walking around, that's like multiple sections connected to one another where you're not even killing people.
Yes.
Yeah, but once you get into you are just going through rooms and killing people, that part I have not encountered anything that is particularly different from Hotline Miami 1 in that regard. It's like it's the same sort of gameplay loop of, you know, you die instantly, your enemies die instantly. It is very tactical and very like you just have to plan out what you're going to do and fucking go for it at a breakneck pace and try to clear out as many people as quickly as possible, and then regroup, like make sure like nobody heard what you did, take stock of what is happening, come up with a new plan to clear out like the next few rooms. You probably knock someone down by breaking through a door and then just kill everyone in the room and stomp on someone's head. Like it's still that gameplay.
Totally. The mechanics have not really changed. I think guns fire a little differently at how you aim them, though the lock-on has not changed. And actually, I think that's for the worse. I think they needed to fix that, and I'm disappointed.
Yeah, and this is the first time I've played a lot of Hotline Miami with a controller, because I played Hotline Miami 1 on the PC.
True.
And I played a little bit of Hotline Miami 1 on the Vita and the PS4 when it was on PS Plus, but never got really deep into it. And I'm finding that I liked the PC controls better, mostly for the gun stuff, because the mouse is a lot faster.
Yeah.
So I just find like I can't rely on guns as much in Hotline Miami 2.
Yeah, well, and I should say I'm playing it on the Vita because that's how I played 1, and I think it plays really well on the Vita. Having the touchscreen to look around the map and aim is really helpful. And I think blowing up the graphics to a TV does them a disservice at some point, even though they are really nice.
Yeah.
I think it looks so gorgeous on the Vita. I think gorgeous is the wrong word for this game. Brutally beautiful.
Fucking dirty, man. It's a dirty fucking game.
Yeah, it's great. The graphics are better this time around, I'll say. They've taken a little step up, although it's the same style. Yeah, so so the control is still, the whole lock-on thing still does not work, certainly with console controls. So that's a problem. And I think actually it's worse this time because of certain changes to how they do things. But like I said, so mechanics are the same, but there are little differences in how it works, in so much as you don't have the same kind of options with all the masks. It's a little more guided this time. Yeah. And one thing I've definitely noticed, I heard this before the game came out, and I started noticing it early on, and definitely with the level I just played today, the levels are a lot bigger. And that's a change to me, because that just kind of changes how you play it, because that means this can take a lot longer to get through some of these levels, because you could die right at the end, and it's like, oh fuck, that's 5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely did notice, like, even early on. And it's something that I'm not sure if I like it. Like, I have to play more of it to really form my opinion on it. But it does feel like the early levels in Hotline Miami 2 feel more like the later levels in Hotline Miami 1, just in the sense that they are bigger.
And they're harder.
Yeah, and since they are bigger and harder, it means that, like, when you restart, you have to cover a lot more ground to get back to where you were. Whereas the first few levels of Hotline Miami 1 were, like, either you beat that level in, like, a minute or you didn't. And whereas in Hotline Miami 2, I feel like there's just a lot of, okay, like, this is like, there's a 5-step process to clearing out this stage, and if you fuck up at any point, obviously you have to go back to the very beginning of it, and that can be a little bit frustrating for me.
Yeah, I get that, and but I kind of like the challenge of it so far, or maybe I should say I find it interesting, and I just don't have a judgment on it either way yet. Some of the changes, and then the changes are, in so much as this stuff is like, because the narrative is heavier and who you play as is more dictated.
Yeah, because there's like also 3 different protagonists at least, right?
There's 9 total.
There's 9, jeez.
When you, not that I've gotten all of them yet, but you have that. Yeah, you have a lot, and so like there's some amount of choice when you play as the fans, which are a group of 3 or 4 people, and they each have a different mask. But that's a lot more restrictive too. So I just got the second fan earlier today, and he has the Tony mask from the original game, and that's the mask I always used in the original because that's the one-hit kill punches.
Yeah.
But he could also use weapons and everything else. However, Tony in this game cannot pick up anything. You only have punches. That changes things.
Yeah,
and I think
that really changes things.
So between that and then you have the writer, who's a different character who doesn't kill people, or you can, but that'll fail you. So you have to be more sneaky at how you do things. There are some different ways you're asked to approach these levels, and then the levels are built around that. And so far what I'm seeing in the story is it's extending that discourse from Hotline Miami 1, where Hotline Miami 1 is both a celebration of video game violence and a denunciation of video game violence. And what's fascinating is kind of the middle ground between those two. And I think this game is a lot about that too, where it's kind of studying your approach to playing the game. Mm-hmm. And I find that interesting. But definitely I think through what I've played so far, here's the basic bottom line. Hotline Miami 1 is such a great foundation for a game. If it were just more levels, that would be worth the $13 I paid.
Yeah.
And I'd have fun with it. But it is a lot more ambitious, and it's going to take some time to come with a complete judgment on it so far. I think it's a good game. I recommend it already.
Yeah, I think it's good. But I'm just, I guess I'm a little bit disappointed that I thought I was really ready for just more Hotline Miami, but then I was playing as I don't know. Because I finished Hotline Miami in one sitting. I played that whole game.
Really?
It took me 3 or 4 hours. I played the whole game in one sitting. And it was a really intense and really fulfilling experience. And then now that I'm going back to it, it's I feel like I've already had this, and so it's still really good. But I just wish it doesn't. So far, I'm gonna give it a lot play. I'm probably gonna beat it, even if it never fully clicks for me. I'm still looking for that high that Hotline Miami 1 had for me of just you just get into that zen. And you just go for it, and you're just really into it. I can't quite get that with this one.
And I play Hotline Miami a little differently, but I could agree with that sentiment. I haven't quite gotten gripped the same way, but I also think it's playing a longer, bigger game on you.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, it's kind of funny to hear you say that. I cannot play Hotline Miami for extended periods of time. It gets in my head. It's the way it's just so kind of slimy and sleazy in the aesthetics, and it's so intense in the violence, and the music is so intoxicating. Yeah. That's one thing I want to talk about in a second. But so when I get into that space, I have to basically do maybe one level all the way through for Hotline Miami 2 because they're longer, and maybe a couple for 1. But then I have to step away and come back later. And I beat Hotline Miami 1, and I've probably played the whole game through at least another time just in doing random levels again, because I just like playing it. Mm-hmm. But I also, that's why I like playing it on the Vita. I have to do it in kind of shorter bursts.
Sure.
I can't just sit down and play it like I would, Persona for 2 hours or something.
Yeah, and I guess that's the thing what I'm talking about with Hotline Miami 2, is that when I sat down to play it for the first time after I downloaded it, I was fully prepared to play it for 3 or 4 hours straight, the way I did Hotline Miami 1. And I played the first few missions, I was I'm going to watch a movie. Because there was just I didn't feel that urge to keep on playing it. I was not in the game the way I was with Hotline Miami 1.
But I do have to say, I think the music is even better this time.
The music's fucking
awesome. And the music for Hotline Miami 1 is one of the all-time great video game soundtracks.
Yeah.
So that alone, Hotline Miami 2, this is just an amazing assortment of music they have in this game.
It's still the same style as Hotline Miami 1, but they're all different tracks.
And I feel like they pushed it even further on that sleazy techno horror music.
Yeah.
It the music alone gets in your head and just kind of messes with you.
Yeah. And just the pulsating neon background and shit. It's fuck.
I love now when you pause, it looks like a VHS menu.
Yeah, that's a
great
really
touch.
Nice little detail.
Brings back now, I feel like when I'm playing it on the Vita, this is the same with Persona 4, because that has all those VHS touches.
Yeah.
I do that, and it's I feel like I'm holding a tape, because that's what the Vita looks like.
Sure, yeah.
So yeah, I hope we can talk about the game more later, because I just think it's going to take longer to form a complete judgment on this one.
Yeah.
It's doing something different, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And I should say, if you want to get it, it's Sony is always great commitment to cross-buy, so you get it on PS3, PS4, and Vita.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. I haven't played it on anything but my Vita yet, but I have it on my PS3 upstairs, and maybe I'll give it a go there. But I like playing it on the Vita more, so yeah. So that's cool. And it means, technically, there was a new Vita game. Yay!
Sure, yeah.
No, there are regularly new Vita games. They just are usually like this. They're cross.
They're usually like ports of what it was a PC franchise originally.
Yeah. Oh well. I love the Vita for what it is.
Yeah, me too.
Good system. So, anything else to talk about from all of this stuff so far?
I don't think so.
All right, so let's go ahead and start wrapping it up. What are we going to do in the future weeks? Well, exciting news.
Yes.
The Persona 3, the movie number 2, Midsummer Night's Dream, with a K, is coming out on Blu-ray. It actually came out on Blu-ray this week in the U.S., I think in Japan too, but we get the... As last year, they are doing a special version for the U.S. that basically just they slap subtitles on it. Yeah. So yay. It also comes with the soundtrack and all those other goodies, so I have ordered it, breaking my bank account yet again.
Those things are fucking expensive.
$80 Blu-ray, but this has been an expensive month for me because the same day I was ordering that, Criterion had a flash sale. And that's the only time I buy Criterion Blu-rays because I want to see, and some of these I need for school, that's why I get these. So that was like a $200 day for me. Yeah. Not good. Anyway. And when I went to order Persona 3 on Right Stuff, they had the Persona 4, the Animation Collection 1 back in stock briefly, which is out of print now. And I only have the second DVD set. But they had it for super cheap, so I had to buy that too. Anyway, inconvenient month for that. But anyway, so I've got that coming. Hopefully that comes next week and we can watch it and talk. We will, as soon as it comes, we will watch it and record a podcast. And I think that'll be our next episode. As you'll know, this time last year we reviewed Persona 3, the movie number 1, Spring of Birth. Yes. And we liked it, right? Yeah. Are we excited for the second one?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I'm ready for Icus.
Indeed. So, super excited for
ready
that.
For episode Icus.
I'm excited for the soundtrack. I love that movie 1 soundtrack. Yeah. So, anyway...
get some Lotus juice back in my life, motherfucker.
Absolutely. He is also doing the theme for the third movie I saw. So anyway, so that third movie is coming out in Japan in April. So they slowed down a little bit for that third one, but they are coming slowly but surely. So anyway, we're gonna have that. I might, if money allows it, because as I said, this is an expensive month. I really want to play Final Fantasy Type 0 HD. Right. And get the 15 demo, because I think it could be super interesting content for this podcast.
Sure, yeah.
So maybe. I don't know. I still have the...
I'm not going to get... I am really curious about Final Fantasy 15. I'm not going to get that.
Okay. I mean, I want to play Type 0. It's supposed to be a great game, and I want to play it for that. I wish it were coming out on the Vita, because it is a PSP game. And that's stupid. Right, yeah. I would rather play it there than on my Xbox or PS4, but oh well. So I might get that game if money allows it, or if I have the money, if I feel like it's a responsible expenditure.
Yeah,
that kind of thing. Question. So I think I still have a PayPal donate thing up on the website. If you really want to hear us talk about Final Fantasy 15 episode Deuce K, or however you pronounced it, sure. But anyway, so yeah,
I really hope Final Fantasy 15 is good.
Everyone says the demo's good, so I hope so.
I guess I should say I hope like the characters in the story of Final Fantasy 15 are good, because I cannot play like a really long RPG that I don't like the story.
That's absolutely true.
It's not a trait of mine. It's why I hate like the post Final Fantasy 7 Final Fantasies, because I hate those fucking characters and stories.
I get it, and I love the battle system of Final Fantasy 13. I've said this many times. I think it's one of the all-time great RPG battle systems. It is amazing, and I went back and tried to play the game again this year because I do, at some point, that is one of those things on my backlog I want to finish because I put like 25 hours into it, and I can't. As you said, the story is not, and I think it's got some interesting things to it. Overall, it is not enough to sustain that experience. So, yeah. So we'll see. I might wait to hear the reviews on Type 0 also, but I am interested in that game.
That would be a wise decision.
Probably a wise decision, yes. I will say I did experience preload with Xenoverse on the Xbox One for the first time. That's super cool how that works. I'd never done it on the PS4. I assume it works... you've done it on the PS4, right? Yeah. It's just a cool way that works. I like preload.
Yeah, it's just you download it, and then when the game comes out, like there's a nice little timer, and you're like, I can play the game now. Great.
Yeah, that's great. So that's nice. So anyway... Yeah, so those are possible upcoming topics. I have a couple of Marvel-related topics or stuff with as movie season ramps up. We could talk about, things are going to start happening soon. So, and I hope, we can make this more regular. And I know I want to talk to you, Sean, like off the air about topic ideas and try to get a better list of those going and stuff. But so
I'm also getting Bloodborne. Like I just pre-ordered it a couple of days ago, so I'll be playing that and talking about it on the podcast
awesome.
as well.
Sounds good. So plenty of stuff coming. And hopefully this will be a little more regular. It's not going to be another 2 months. We've got plenty of stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
But, so sorry for the delay, but I had fun here tonight. Do you have fun?
I had fun, yeah.
All right, yes. We learned about the guy with chocolate chips in his pocket. We talked about Persona 5.
Talked about Dragon Ball for a long time.
We learned that the bees determine royalty on this planet.
It's true.
I think we learned a lot.
Yes.
And learning is... I was going to say and knowing is half the battle. But I messed it up. I really messed it up.
This is what happens when we wait 5 years to do our podcast. Is you just lose everything.
What about you?
What about me?
You don't have a funny kiss-off line. You do it if it's so easy.
This is the end. Jonathan, you can go fuck yourself.